The Land of the Elves and the Chocolate Factory. Prologue. In a hidden corner of the world, where the sun gently penetrates through clouds of cotton candy and the air always carries the scent of vanilla and cocoa, lies the land of the elves. It is a place where the meadows are soft as clouds, covered with whipped cream grass and colorful sugar flowers, and the rivers flow not with ordinary water, but with sweet milk and melted chocolate, bubbling gently and emitting aromatic steam. In this land, the trees are not simple trees, but caramel trunks with crispy leaves that rustle when the wind passes through them, and the forests are full of sugar fireflies that illuminate the night with golden sparkles. The heart of this magical land lies the Chocolate Factory, a fabulous place built of sugar bricks, glazed with white chocolate and decorated with caramel crystals. Its towers rise to the sky like spirals of praline, and the windows, made of transparent jelly panes, sparkle in the morning sun. Inside, magical machines hum ceaselessly, transforming cocoa beans into fine chocolate, and aromatic steam fills the halls with inviting scents. The smoothing trays, enchanted mills and self-moving mixers are run by hardworking elves, each with their own special gift. Some can add wonderful aromas, others shape the chocolate or color it with glittering powders. The factory is not just a workplace, but a living universe, where magic and creativity intertwine. The elves live and breathe to the rhythm of their machines, and every process, from roasting the beans, grinding the cocoa, mixing sugar and spices, to the final shaping and decoration, is accompanied by laughter, sparks of joy and the flutter of dreams. The land, the elves, and the chocolate factory represent a world where sweets are not just taste, but pure magic. Every flavor, every shape, and every color tells a story, and those who step here immediately feel that they are entering a place where dreams come to life and joy can be tasted in every chocolate, jelly, or candy. Tea is the beginning of an adventure where creativity, courage, and friendship merge, and the magic of sweet dreams extends beyond any imagination. Chapter 1. The Land of the Sweet Dream. In a hidden corner of the world, where the sky is always colored in shades of pale pink, light blue, and gold, there is a place that people could only call a dream. The Land of the Elves, or as its inhabitants call it, the Land of the Sweet Dream. Tea is a land that does not. It is open to anyone. You must carry the innocence of childhood in your heart and believe in unseen wonders to find it. The landscape of this land seems to be taken from a never-ending fairy tale. The meadows stretch to the horizon, covered with fluffy, bright green grass that smells like freshly whipped cream. With every breeze, the blades of grass rustle with a gentle sound, like a whisper of song. Among them grow wonderful flowers, sugar tulips, white chocolate daisies, and translucent jelly roses, whose petals melt into a sweet drop when touched. Not far from these meadows, enchanted forests stretch, with golden trunks and crunchy caramel leaves. And the sunlight, the trees shine like living statues. And when the wind passes through the branches, a crystalline tinkling is heard, like an orchestra. The elves say that those leaves have a soul and sing the joy of the land whenever someone steps into the forest. Smooth and shining rivers flow from meadows and forests, with waters as sweet as honey. From some flows warm milk, from others melted chocolate, and their banks are covered with brown sugar pebbles and almond shells. When the sun reflects in the waves, the rivers seem like ribbons of gold and silver, winding through the meadows and carrying with them old stories, gathered from every corner of the land. The air that envelopes everything is both fragrant and light, like an invisible caress, and the morning it smells of fresh vanilla and jasmine flowers. At noon, the breeze carries aromas of hot chocolate and cinnamon, and in the evening, the air smells of caramel and roasted nuts, as if the entire land were breathing with the elves. Above, the sky is never empty. During the day, it is painted in delicate colors, and soft cotton candy clouds float lazily, changing their shape to tell stories to those who know how to look. Night, The stars shine closer than anywhere else, sparkling like sugar diamonds, and the moon is reflected in the rivers, transforming them into ribbons of liquid silver. Here live the elves, little beings full of energy and joy, with shining eyes and dexterous hands. They have their homes hidden in caramel hollows, in marshmallow nests, or in huts with white chocolate roofs. Each elves has their own gift. Some know how to pick sugar flowers, others tame vanilla bees, and others understand the whispers of the milk rivers. But the true heart of the land is the chocolate factory, hidden in the middle of a luminous meadow. Although it will be discussed later, the elves consider it the soul of the place where dreams turn into sweets and sweets into magic. Traveling through the land of sweet dreams, you have the impression that every corner of the meadow, every leaf or blade of grass keeps a secret. Sometimes, if you stand still, you can hear the rivers whispering their stories, or you can see the vanilla bees drawing shapes that resemble hearts in the sky. But perhaps the most important thing about this land is that it does not allow itself to be seen with the simple eyes of the body, but with the eyes of the heart. Whoever steps here feels how worries disappear, how the heart becomes lighter, and how every breath becomes a mouthful of dreams. It is a place of joy, friendship, and magic that is born from things simple. Thus begins our story. In the land of sweet dreams, where the meadows are whipped cream, the forests rustle in caramel tones, the rivers flow with milk and chocolate, and the air is always scented with sweet promises. It is a land where elves live happily, but also where their destiny will lead them to unexpected adventures, through work, magic, and much joy. Chapter 2. The Factory in the Heart of the Land. In the center of the land of the elves, where fragrant meadows met whispering forests and clear rivers, stood a building never seen before. It was the heart of the realm, the place where dreams intertwined with reality, and sweetness took shape under the hard-working hands of the elves. This was the famous sugar brick factory, an architectural jewel and a sanctuary of magic. From a distance, the building looked like a castle straight out of a fairy tale, but instead of stone and wood, the walls were built of translucent blocks of crystallized sugar. The bricks sparkled in the sunlight, spreading colorful reflections like the stained glass windows of a cathedral. In the morning, the walls lit up in shades of pale pink and golden yellow, and in the evening, the sunset light dressed them in bright red and velvety purple. It was as if the factory breathed with the light. The windows had delicate frames, carved from solidified caramel, with spiral patterns and shimmering arabesques. From them, you could sometimes see the interior lights, like fireflies dancing behind the transparent glass. The roof was a real spectacle, shiny chocolate tiles, carefully placed side by side, and fine streams of honey flowed along the edges, like sweet gargoyles dripping down the walls. The towers, tall and graceful, were covered with white glaze, like the peaks of whipped cream, and crowned with flags made of spun sugar ribbons that fluttered merrily in the breeze. But the beauty of the building did not stop on the outside. The entrance gate, made of carved cinnamon wood, was huge, but light to the touch. When it opened, it let in an avalanche of perfumes. The smell of vanilla, honey, citrus fruits, and chocolate intertwined in a dizzying mix. Anyone who stepped inside felt their heart skip a beat, as if they had entered a sacred but friendly place, where magic came to life. The interior was even more amazing than the exterior. The floor was made of colored sugar mosaics, which formed intricate designs. Butterflies, stars, flowers, and spirals. In the ceiling, sugar crystal chandeliers emanated a warm and gentle light, and the walls were decorated with sweet stained glass windows, made of transparent candies, through which sunlight entered like enchanted windows. In the center of the main hall was the heart of the factory, a huge ensemble of magical machines. They were not cold and noisy like those in the human world, but alive, playful, and elegant. The elves called them singing machines, because each mechanism made harmonious sounds, bells, trills, whispers of the wind. Thus, the factory was never noisy, but full of music. Each machine was a work of art. Some had wheels made of white chocolate, others had arms made of almond wood, and the wheels were made of pink, green, or blue sugar crystals. When they spun, they spread sparks of light and fragrant drops. Some machines resembled musical organs, with colored tubes that, instead of notes, produced sweet ribbons of caramel. Others resembled giant flowers. The petals opened and closed, stirring the melted chocolate or whipping the whipped cream in fluffy waves. In one corner of the factory was the wheel of flavors, a giant sun-shaped mechanism that mixed fruit essences and spices. The elves poured bottles filled with lemon, vanilla, cinnamon, mint, or lavender flower extract into it, and the wheel combined them into a magical dance. Every time it rotated completely, a fragrant cloud rose and spread throughout the room, sweetening the air. Next to it was the praline piano, was a giant piano, with keys made of wafers and strings made of caramel threads. When an elf pressed the key, not only did a musical note sound, but a small candy fell from inside, perfectly round and with a unique taste. All visitors were invited to play the piano and taste the music cakes. Another famous mechanism was the eternal chocolate fountain. It rose to the ceiling, a tower of liquid chocolate that flowed continuously, never ending. The elves said that the spring was directly connected to the heart of the sweet earth, and the chocolate did not cool, did not spoil, but always remained creamy and fragrant. Around the fountain were round gingerbread tables, on which were placed fruits, biscuits and nuts for those who wanted to taste. The machines did not work alone. The elves were the soul of the factory, each with a well-established role. Some were the mixers, who spun giant spoons of spun sugar, others were the painters, who decorated the cakes with colored glazes, and others were the singers, who set the rhythm and maintained the good mood. The entire factory resembled a theater. Each character had his role, but together they formed a perfect harmony. In addition to the practical part, the factory also had a mysterious part. In its basements, it was said that there were secret rooms where the elves kept ancient recipes, written on sugar parchments. These recipes were not only about taste, but also about magic. Some cakes brought tranquility and dreaming, others offered courage and hope, and others could cure sadness or longing. Each sweet had a purpose, and the factory was the place where they came to life. When night fell, the factory did not sleep. On the contrary, it turned into a spectacle of light and color. The sugar walls began to glow from the candles lit inside, and the chocolate roof spread a warm and inviting smell. The cars continued their singing, but more slowly, like a lullaby. The elves gathered the sweets prepared during the day and placed them in golden baskets, to send them all over the land, so that everyone could share the sweetness of their dreams. On nights with a full moon, the factory became even more wonderful. The silver rays of the moon penetrated through the candy-stained glass windows, illuminating the interior in a play of multicolored shadows. Then, the elves said that the factory catches full life. The machines moved by themselves, they sang by themselves, and the sweets were prepared as if by magic. It was the moon's gift to the land, a night in which magic poured over all the inhabitants. Thus, the factory in the heart of the land was not just a place where cakes or candies were made. It was the center of a world, a symbol of unity and joy. The sugar walls were not fragile but strong, because they were held together by the faith and will of the elves. The machines were not cold, but full of life, because each one was endowed with a spark of magic. And the sweets created there were not simple snacks, but messengers of hope, friendship and dreams. Those who were lucky enough to step inside the factory never forgot the experience. Every detail, from the shining walls to the song of the machines and the scent of the air, remained imprinted in the heart. It was living proof that in the land of the goblins, even seemingly ordinary things like a factory could become temples of magic and joy. Chapter 3. The 7 hardworking elves. In the heart of the land of the elves, among fragrant meadows and luminous forests, lived 7 special elves. They were not just ordinary inhabitants of the sweet land, but the most industrious, most skilled and most respected of all. It was said that each of them had been blessed, since birth, with a unique gift, meant to bring balance, beauty and joy to the land. The elves were inseparable friends, bound by a lasting friendship, and each had a special personality, complementing each other. Together they formed a circle of harmony, a group that watched over the well-being of the land and the magical factory in its midst. There were 4 girls and 3 boys, each with their own story, appearance and grace. 1. 𝕰𝖓𝖉, the girl of lights. 𝕰𝖓𝖉 was the most cheerful of the elves, a being who always seemed surrounded by a radiant aura. Her blonde hair, almost white, fell like a wave of golden rays, and her green eyes sparkled like emeralds. Her clothes were woven from sunflower petals and thin gold threads, which lit up when she laughed. 𝕰𝖓𝖉's gift was light. She could light any flame with a simple touch, she could illuminate the darkest corners of the forest and, above all, she could banish sadness from souls. When an elf was burdened with worries, 𝕰𝖓𝖉 would give him a ray of light that would penetrate deep into his heart and bring joy on festive evenings. She would light flower lanterns and spread sparks in the sky, like fireworks. 2. 𝕊𝖉, the forest girl. 𝕊𝖉 was quieter and gentler. Her long brown hair was braided with thin branches and green leaves, and her brown eyes had the peace of old trees. She always wore a dress made of fine moss and forest flowers, which changed with the seasons. Intense green in spring, gold in autumn and silver in winter. 𝕊𝖉's gift was the connection with nature. She could call the birds, talk to animals and make plants grow faster. In the factory gardens, 𝕊𝖉 watched over the health of the fruit trees, and the flowers always opened when they felt her near. If someone got lost in the forest, 𝕊𝖉 was the one who brought them back on the right path, calling them with a melodious voice. 3. 𝕰𝖙𝖓, the sweet girl. 𝕰𝖙𝖓 was the most skillful elf at the factory. Her hair was red, always tied in a long ponytail, and her cheeks were as rosy as ripe apples. She wore colorful caramel silk aprons and always filled her pockets with candies and glazed nuts. 𝕰𝖙𝖓's gift was sweetness. She could transform any simple ingredient into a magical cake. With a touch, honey became more fragrant, chocolate smoother, and fruit sweeter. All the special recipes of the factory passed through her hands, and the elves said that when 𝕰𝖙𝖓 smiled, even the water in the rivers tasted of sugar. Children all over the land adored her, because she prepared the most colorful and playful candies. 4. 𝕰𝖍𝖎𝖓, the girl of music. 𝕰𝖍𝖎𝖓 was the soul of gaiety. She had long black hair, decorated with ribbons of spun sugar, and her blue eyes sparkled like the clear sky. She always carried a small lyre at her waist, made of golden chocolate and caramel threads, which made crystalline sounds with every touch. 𝕰𝖍𝖎𝖓's gift was music. She could transform any sound into a song, and her song healed hearts. When she sang, flowers would open, birds would stop flying, and the factory machines would move their wheels to the rhythm of the notes. In the evening, 𝕰𝖍𝖎𝖓 would gather the elves on the meadow and sing them old stories, which only she could bring to life through her melody. 5. 𝕮𝖍𝖎𝖓, the water boy. The first of the boys was 𝕮𝖍𝖎𝖓, a river elf. He had dark blue hair, like waves in a storm, and his eyes were clear as spring water. His clothing was made of fluid silk, which always sparkled as if it were wet. 𝕮𝖍𝖎𝖓's gift was linked to water. He could make rivers sing, calm storms, or bring rain on dry days. When the factory needed clear water for its sweets, 𝕮𝖍𝖎𝖓 was the one who brought the purest springs. Moreover, he knew how to create small luminous spheres from water, magical toys for the elf children. 6. 𝕮𝖓𝖉, the fire boy. 𝕮𝖓𝖉 was the most energetic of them all. His fiery red hair seemed to burn, and his eyes sparkled like embers. He always wore clothes made of gold cloth, with red patterns, and a small cinnamon stick, which amplified his gift. 𝕉's gift was fire. He could easily light flames, but also control their intensity. To the factory, he was the one who kept the cauldrons of chocolate and syrups warm. But his fire was not a destructive one. 𝕉's flames warmed hearts, brought courage and lit up the dark nights. The elves said that without him, no celebration would be complete, because his fireworks were always the highlight. 7. Arion, the dream boy. The last of the 7 was also the most mysterious. Arion had silver hair that sparkled in the moonlight, and violet eyes, deep as the night. Dressed in a blue cloak, sprinkled with golden stars, he seemed to carry a piece of the sky with him. Arion's gift was linked to dreams. He could penetrate the world of dreams, could drive away nightmares, and could bring inspiration to those who slept on clear nights. Arion sprinkled dream dust on the land, ensuring that every elf, child or old, had peaceful sleep and beautiful dreams. In the factory, he was the one who inspired the most unexpected recipes, brought as if from an unseen world. The 7 elves were not just talented individuals, but a true team. Leora brought light, Silva nurtured nature, Melina sweetened everything, Aurelia gave rhythm and song, Nerio brought water, 𝕉 maintained the fire, and Arion enveloped everything in dreams. Together they formed a perfect circle, a balance between elements and gifts, without which the land of the elves would not have the same beauty. Whenever they met, the world seemed to hold its breath. Around them, flowers bloomed faster, birds sang louder, and rivers flowed more cheerfully. The factory in the heart of the realm depended on their work, but the entire community also relied on their special gifts. The simple elves looked at them with admiration and gratitude, because they knew that the 7 were not only hardworking, but also kind-hearted. Moreover, their friendship was the greatest treasure. Never they didn't argue, but found balance between them. When 𝕉 got hot, Nerio would cool him down. When Silva was too quiet, Aurelia would make her laugh. When Arion seemed lost in his dreams, Leora would bring him back to the light. They were an example for the whole realm. 7 different elves, but united by love, work, and magic. Chapter 4. The Master Painter and the Secret Bridge. In the land of the elves, where sweetness was the law of nature and joy was intertwined with magic, there were not only fragrant meadows and shining factories. Beyond the visible beauty of the land, there were also carefully guarded secrets hidden, secrets that could only be discovered by the brave and wise. One such secret was linked to an old elf known as the Master Painter and a secret bridge, hidden deep in the chocolate forests. The Master Painter was one of the oldest elves in the land. He lived secluded, in a small house dug into the trunk of a huge cocoa tree, at the edge of the forest. He had a white beard, long to his waist, gray hair and coffee-colored eyes, warm and penetrating. He always wore a brown velvet cloak, embroidered with golden patterns that they resembled cocoa beans, and a staff of hard wood, carved with ancient symbols. The elves looked at him with respect and, sometimes, with fear, because Master 𝕍𝑠 was the keeper of forgotten recipes, of stories that spoke of the beginnings of the realm. He was said that he had been the first to discover the magical chocolate beans, but that he had never revealed their full power. Around the fire, children listened to stories about him, that he could turn a drop of chocolate into light, or that, through a spell, he could make a river flow with hot chocolate for days. However, 𝕍𝑠 was not a feared wizard, but a gentle sage. He knew that true magic did not lie in strength, but in balance and patience. Therefore, he guarded his secrets carefully, waiting for the day when someone worthy would deserve to know them. Legend said that somewhere deep in the forest, there was a secret bridge built of giant hardened chocolate beans. The bridge could not be easily found, because it only appeared in the evening, when the last rays of the sun touched the crowns of the cocoa trees, when the rays melted into the green leaves, the bridge emerged from the ground, shining in shades of brown and gold. The bridge did not lead over an ordinary river, but over a mysterious abyss, called by the elves the Pit of Lost Sweetness. It was a deep rift in the ground, where light did not penetrate, and a sweet steam always rose from the depths. Ordinary elves did not approach that place, but it was said that the scent of magical chocolate beans rose from the pit. Only those who crossed the bridge could reach the place where the beans were hidden. The magic beans were not simple ingredients for cakes. They contained the power of the first elves, being considered the seeds of life sweet. Each berry held a gift. One brought courage, another awakened the imagination, another healed sad hearts. But the greatest secret was that when 7 berries were gathered together, an ancient song was revealed, the song from which the land of the goblins was born. That is why the master painter was so respected. He knew where the berries were and how they could be guarded. But he had never told anyone their exact location. "It's not time yet," he often said, with an enigmatic smile. One bright morning, the 7 hardworking elves, 𝕱𝖓𝖈, Silva, Melina, Aurelia, Nerio, Phael and Arion, felt the call of a new adventure. The air was different, full of a bittersweet scent, as if the forest itself had whispered something to them. Then they decided to visit the master painter. When they arrived at his house, the old man was waiting for them, as if he had known in advance that they would come. On the table, he had placed 7 small cups of hot chocolate, and their steam spread a soothing aroma. "You have come at the right time," 𝕍𝖑 told them in his deep and gentle voice. "Our land needs you. The secret bridge will be revealed tonight, and the mystery of the berries can no longer be kept by me alone. It is time to share it with those who have gifts and pure hearts." The elves looked at each other, overcome with emotion. It was the first time the old man had spoken to them about the bridge and the berries. When the sun began to set, the 7, accompanied by Master 𝕍𝖑, set off towards the cocoa forest. The forest was quieter than ever. The leaves did not rustle, the birds did not sing. Only the sweet scent of the ripe berries floated in the air, guiding them to the edge of the abyss. They waited. The golden rays of sunset descended through the trees, touching the ground. Then, under their gaze amazed, the bridge appeared, a huge arch of glossy chocolate, sprinkled with golden granules, shining like stars. "This is the secret bridge," said 𝕍𝖑. "Only those united and fearless can cross it. If one of you wavers in heart, the bridge will melt." The elves stepped onto the bridge carefully, one after the other. 𝕱𝖓𝖈 lit the way, Silva tamed the wind, Nerio cooled the air, Phael brought courage, Melina smiled and dispelled fear, Aurelia sang softly, and Arion watched over their common dream. The bridge remained solid under their steps and led them to the other shore. Beyond the bridge, stretched a hidden clearing, illuminated by a gentle glow, and in the middle of it, on a pedestal of crystallized sugar, was a small brown velvet bag. 𝕍𝖑 motioned for them to come closer. "Here it is 7 magical chocolate beans. Each of you will receive one, for your gifts must be strengthened by their power. But know this, these are not for you, but for the entire community. To use them selfishly would be to destroy the balance of the realm." Each elf took a bean. 𝕱𝖓𝖈 felt the light in her palms grow stronger, Silva felt the flowers respond more quickly to her call, Melina discovered new aromas, Aurelia heard her song clearer, Nerio felt the rivers livelier, Phael felt the flames softer, and Arion saw brighter dreams. That evening, before the master painter, the 7 elves swore to keep the beans and use them only for the good of the realm. The old man looked at them with eyes wet with emotion and said, "Now I know that the land of the elves is safe. The bridge and the beans have found their guardians. But never forget, the real magic lies not in your gifts or in these beans, but in your unity." With these words, the bridge began to slowly disappear, melting in the moonlight. The elves knew That from now on, the mystery of the beans was part of their story, and they were called to protect the balance of the land. Chapter 5. The first day in the chocolate factory. Morning had descended on the land of the elves like a breeze of sweet perfume. The sun was rising slowly, dressing the meadows in golden lights, and the rivers flowed softly, carrying with them silver reflections. It was an important day. The first day that the 7 hardworking elves would work in the factory in the heart of the land. From the early hours, the sugar brick building sparkled like a jewel in the sunlight. The tall chimneys blew sweet vanilla-scented steam into the air, and the colored windows showed the shadows of the moving cars. The elves had gathered in front of the large gates, their hearts full of emotions and curiosity. When the gates opened with a melodious creak, like an invisible organ, the elves were amazed. The main hall was vast, with floors of hardened caramel and walls of carved white chocolate. Melted sugar chandeliers hung from the ceiling, spreading colored lights. The air was so fragrant that it seemed that every breath fed their souls. A workshop master, dressed in a golden cloth apron, greeted them with a broad smile. "Welcome, our little hard workers. Today you begin a journey that will forever connect you to the factory and its magic. The machines await you, and each of you has a role to discover." The elves looked at each other excitedly, ready to face the unknown. First hall. The Sweet Dreams Machine. They first stepped into a vast room, where a huge machine stood, composed of caramel wheels, sugar pipes and buttons shining like crystal candies. "This is the Sweet Dreams Machine," the master explained to them. "He transforms ideas into recipes. All you have to do is whisper a sweet thought to it." Leora, the elf of light, was the first to approach. "With emotion," she said, "a cake that will bring smiles to children." The machine made a cheerful jingle, and on a conveyor belt appeared a fluffy cake, decorated with lights that twinkled like stars. The elves burst into laughter in amazement. The machine not only granted wishes, but also amplified them with magic. The second hall. The Chocolate River. The next stop was at the Chocolate River, a spectacular installation that flowed through the middle of the hall. From the ceiling, waterfalls of chocolate poured into transparent channels, and the spirals of the machine constantly mixed it, preserving its fine texture. 𝕮𝖆𝖓𝖉, the water elf, instinctively approached. He felt the river recognize him, responding to his touch. When he dipped his hand in, the chocolate swirled and began to sing like a crystalline stream. 𝕮𝖆𝖓𝖉, you will watch over the river so that it does not dry up and that the flavors remain balanced, said the master. You have the gift of keeping the flow uninterrupted. 𝕮𝖆𝖓𝖉 smiled proudly, knowing that the water and chocolate were now in his care. The third hall. The mechanical forest. In another room, the elves found something truly unusual. The mechanical forest. Dozens of metal and glass trees grew there, and instead of leaves they had colorful lollipops and swaying jellies. Silva, the nature elf, was enchanted. She approached a tree and whispered something to it. Then, the lollipops bloomed brighter, and the jellies took on new, unknown flavors. Silva, you will take care of this mechanical forest. With your power, the sweets will always be alive and full of freshness, the master told him. The forest rustled gratefully, as if greeting its new keeper. Fourth hall. The aroma machine. A wide door led them into a room where the air was full of intoxicating smells. Vanilla, cinnamon, citrus, mint, dark chocolate. And in the middle of the room was the aroma machine, a round glass colossus, where the essences mixed in a fragrant dance. Melina, the elf of smiles and tastes, was the one who felt the call. When she touched the machine, it began to release such a pleasant fragrance that everyone burst into laughter. It was as if happiness itself was born there. You, Melina, will be the master of aromas. No cake will be dull as long as your hands touch this machine, said the master. 𝕰𝖓𝖓 smiled broadly, aware that her gift now had a home. The fifth hall. The sugar organ. Here, an extraordinary machine dominated the room. The sugar organ. Crystal pipes rose to the ceiling, and when a caramel keyboard was touched, sweets came out on musical notes. Aurelia, the song elf, let her fingers slide over the keys. String of golden cakes began to flow from the pipes, each carrying the echo of the melody. The elves were speechless, and Aurelia felt her soul leap. You will bring harmony to the factory. Your music will guide the rhythm of work and maintain balance between all the machines, said the master. The sixth hall. The oven of the sun. In a room where the walls were of soft stone and the floor shone like gold, the oven of the sun burned. Its flames did not burn, but comforted, and the cakes that came out of it were always perfect. 𝕉, the gentle fire elf, approached and felt the flames recognize him. They danced freely, letting themselves be led by him. 𝕉, you will be the guardian of the oven. Your power to tame the fire will ensure that no dessert burns and no dough is raw, the master told him. 𝕉 agreed, proud of his new responsibility. Seventh hall. The dream room. The last stop was in the dream room, a circular space where the walls were like mirrors made of crystallized milk, and in the middle, a huge bed of cotton candy floated gently. Arion, the dream elf, felt the room calling to him. When he sat down on the bed, the mirrors began to show images of happy children tasting the factory's sweets. Arion, you will watch over the dreams made here. You will ensure that each dessert carries with it a story, a dream that will delight the souls, said the master. After each one found their place, the elves began to work. The machines sang, the river flowed, the aromas danced. The factory was no longer just a workplace, but a living organism, nourished by their gifts. Sunset. When the day ended, the elves gathered in the factory courtyard. Tired but happy, they looked at the chimneys from which rose a pinkish steam, a sign of the sweets prepared. Today you learned that the factory does not only need skill, but also your heart. It lives through you, the master told them. And at that moment, the seven understood that they had begun an adventure that would change their lives. Chapter 6. Roasting and Cleaning the Beans. The sun rose gently over the land of the elves, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, and the morning air brought with it a promising scent. Today was the day the seven elves would learn the secret of roasting and cleaning the cocoa beans. It was an essential step, because without this stage, no chocolate, no matter how magical, could reveal its true flavor. In the factory courtyard, Leora, Silva, Melina, Aurelia, Nerio, 𝕉 and Arion had gathered with their faces lit up with curiosity. In their midst, the master of the workshop smiled gently at them and said, "Today you will learn the art of the beans. It is not enough to pick them from the cocoa forest. You must prepare them carefully, let them tell their story. And above all, listen to them. The grains have a soul." The elves were led to a new hall of the factory, where a truly unusual machine awaited them. It was a huge construction, with huge shiny copper wheels, transparent pipes and round drums on the edges. Colored crystals sparkled like stars, and with each movement, the machine made sounds like a quiet melody on an engraved sugar plate. One could read, "Lena's machine, the heart of taste." Melina, the elf of smiles and aromas, jumped with emotion. She felt that this machine was connected to her gift. "This is your machine, Melina," said the master. "Only you can awaken its true power. With it, raw beans are transformed into sources of flavor and harmony. Roasting and cleaning are more than processes. They are a magic of patience and the senses." Melina approached and gently touched the smooth surface of the drum. To that moment, the crystals lit up in a dance of colored lights, and the machine made a joyful sound, like a child's giggle. The first step. Choosing the beans. In large baskets of fragrant wood, the cocoa beans waited. Some were large and shiny, others small and fragile. The elves learned that the first task was to carefully sort them. Good berries are like good friends, the master told them. They must be chosen carefully, because each one brings a unique aroma. Healthy ones give taste and fragrance, spoiled ones bring bitterness. Silver, with her gift for nature, immediately felt which berries were alive and full of energy. She would choose them gently, putting them in a separate basket, while leaving the others aside. Melina watched the process carefully, learning to recognize the subtleties. A slightly more intense color, a discreet fragrance, a texture that vibrated under her fingers. Step 2. Cleaning. Once selected, the beans were introduced into a section of the machine where jets of scented steam washed them of dust and impurities. The spray danced like luminous pearls, and the beans emerged shining, as if reborn. Arion, the dream elf, closed his eyes and smiled. "It's like a purification ritual," he said. "As if each bean remembers the dream from which it was born." Melina felt the same way. For her, cleaning the beans was not just mechanical work, but an act of respect. Just as we prepare for a feast, the beans must be prepared to become magic. Step 3. Roasting. In the heart of the machine, large copper drums were heated by 𝕉𝖆's gentle flames, but it was no ordinary fire. It was a gentle, careful fire that preserved the essence of the beans without burning them. "Roasting is the key to flavor," said the master. "Too weak, the beans remain raw and bitter. Too strong, the flavors are lost. It takes balance, and only you together can learn that." Melina stood by the drums, feeling every wave of perfume that rose. At first, the beans smelled slightly earthy. Then, little by little, the flavors changed. Nutty notes, then fruity accents, and finally, that unmistakable chocolate scent. Her eyes sparkled. "I feel the story of the beans unfolding. Each stage adds a word, each flavor is a sentence, and in the end, we will have a whole story told in taste." Lena's magic. As the roasting continued, the machine's crystals began to project luminous images onto the walls. Scenes of tropical forests, sunshine, gentle rain, children's smiles. The elves then understood the true power of Lena's machine. It didn't just roast the beans, it revealed the memories and energies hidden within them. Melina touched the drum with her palms, and the image of a giant cocoa flower appeared, surrounded by golden butterflies. "This is your connection with the beans," said the master. "When you are present, they come to life. The machine responds to your heart." When the roasting was finished, the beans were removed and gently crushed, revealing the fragrant cord. A velvety paste was made from them, and the machine let the first drops of liquid chocolate flow. Melina tasted first, closing her eyes. The aromas danced on her taste buds, slightly bitter, but balanced, with sweet and fruity accents. Then the other elves tasted them too, each feeling something different. For Leora, the chocolate tasted like warm light. For Aurelia, it was like a gentle melody. For Nerio, it resembled the murmur of a quiet river. "This is the magic of taste," said Melina. "It is not the same for everyone, but changes according to the heart. Each one receives what they need." The end. The master gathered the elves and told them, "Today you have learned that roasting and cleaning are not simple technical stages. They are an art of patience, respect, and balance. And above all, you have discovered that each bean carries a story, and you are the ones who listen to it and play it back." Melina looked at the machine with gratitude. She knew that her connection with Lena's machine was a gift, but also a responsibility. From now on, the taste of the chocolate produced in the factory would also be its story. Thus ends the day in which the elves learn the art of beans. Lena's machine becomes the symbol of transformation, balance, and the magic of taste, and Melina discovers her role as the keeper of aromas. From now on, the factory no longer produces only sweets, but living stories, conveyed through every piece of chocolate. Chapter 7: 𝕝 and the Enchanted Mill. The day was dawning serenely over the land of the elves. In the distance, the sun's rays reflected on the sweet windows of the factory, and the song of the wind chimes sounded like an invitation to a new adventure. The elves had finished their breakfast of candied fruits and fragrant nectar and had gathered, full of impatience. In front of the large golden caramel gate.It was the day they would discover the next secret of chocolate, grinding the roasted beans in a deep room, kept secret for generations. The enchanted mill awaited them. And of all, 𝕝, the dreamy boy with the gift of peace and balance, would be the one to decipher its true power. When the caramel door opened, the elves were speechless, and in front of them stretched a room huge, round, like a luminous cave. The walls were covered with purple and gold crystals, and in the middle was the mill, a colossal, yet delicate construction, like a clockwork mechanism. The mill had wheels made of translucent stone, inlaid with ancient runes. Rivers of liquid bluish energy flowed around it, like ribbons of light. From time to time, the mechanism emitted a deep murmur, like a deep breath, a sign that it was alive. On a carved panel one could read, "The Enchanted Mill, the Heart of Cocoa." The master of the workshop stepped forward and said solemnly, "This is not a simple machine. It is the heart of the factory. It transforms the beans into paste, releasing their deepest soul. But in order to function, it needs a guide, an elf with the gift of silence, capable of listening to the silence at the core grains. 𝕝, this is your path." Everyone looked at 𝕝 first. The boy felt overwhelmed. He, the one who spoke little, the one who preferred to listen to the rivers and the rustling of leaves, was going to be the leader of such a grandiose mechanism? But when he approached, the mill began to vibrate slightly, as if it had recognized him. The stones lit up, and the golden runes began to light up one by one. 𝕝 placed his hand on the central axis and, at that moment, he heard a gentle voice, like a murmur. "I am glad you came. I waited for your quiet heart to wake me up." 𝕝 started, but he was not scared. He understood. The mill was not a simple mechanism, but a living being, which communicated through vibrations and subtle whispers. The elves brought the beans roasted the previous day, placing them in large baskets made of cinnamon wood. "The first step is to break the beans," explains the master. "The shell must be carefully peeled off, and the core, the nibs, becomes the treasure that the mill will transform." 𝕝 touched a delicate lever, and the mill began to work. The translucent wheels spun smoothly, like planets in a cosmic dance. The beans were taken over by currents of light, their shell peeling off like dry petals, leaving behind the clean core. When the nibs reached the enchanted stones, a rhythmic noise filled the room, like an ancestral drum. The elves watched in fascination as the core slowly transformed into a thick and shiny paste. From it rose a heady, intense, yet warm fragrance, like an embrace. But the real miracle was only now beginning. As the paste formed, the crystals on the walls, they began to project luminous images. Tropical forests full of life, torrential rains that nourished the cocoa trees, hardworking hands picking the fruits. "The mill keeps the memory of the beans," whispered 𝕝. "It shows us their path, from the earth to our hearts." And indeed, each elf saw something different. Leora saw rays of sunlight playing among the leaves. Aurelia heard birdsong, and Melina smelled new, sweet and vibrant perfumes. In the middle of the image, a symbol appeared, a cocoa heart, pulsating like a living star. The mill showed them that in each bean there was a core of pure energy hidden, and by grinding this energy was released. As the process continued, the mill vibrated more and more strongly. Balance was needed. If the rhythm had been too fast, the paste would have become bitter. If it had been too slow, it would have lost its flavors. 𝕉𝖊𝖈 closed his eyes, regulated his breathing and listened. He felt the pulse of the mill, like a heartbeat. And slowly, he began to synchronize his heart with the mechanism. The stones stabilized, and the streams of light became smooth and harmonious. "He is the chosen one of the mill," said the master with admiration. "Only someone who understands silence can maintain balance." The elves looked at 𝕉𝖊𝖈 with new respect. Until then, they saw him as the quietest among them, but now they understood that his silence was a force. Finally, the paste was collected in a crystal bowl. The tea was dense, velvety and shimmered slightly, as if it had sparks in it. The elves watched in amazement. 𝕉𝖊𝖈 took a spoon and tasted it first. The aroma was intense, slightly bitter, but full of depth, a mixture of earth, sun and rain. "This is the essence," he said. "The heart of cocoa. Without it, there would be no chocolate. A tea is the foundation of all future flavors." Melina tasted it too and smiled. "It is like an unfinished story. Tea is not sweet, it is not complete, but it promises 1,000 endings." After everyone had tasted it, the master said, "Today you have learned that grinding is not just a physical transformation. Tea is a journey to the essence, to the core of things. Each stage reveals something hidden. And as the beans free their hearts, you too will learn to discover yours." 𝕉𝖊𝖈, looking at the mill, understood. His power did not lie in words or grand gestures, but in the ability to maintain balance, to listen to what others overlooked. The enchanted mill was now bound to him, and together they would watch over the heart of cocoa. Forever. In the evening, when the elves came out of the mill hall, the sky was sprinkled with stars. In their hands they held a few pots of cocoa paste, and in their souls they carried a precious lesson. True magic lies in the core, in essence, where silence and patience reveal unseen treasures. For 𝕉𝖊𝖈, the day had been a transformation. From a silent elf, he had become the guardian of balance, the one who deciphered the whispers of the mill and freed the heart of the beans. And for the others, it had been proof that every gift has its place and every step of the journey adds a new note to the symphony of chocolate. Chapter 8. Myra's Joyful Mix. The sun was slowly rising over the land of the elves, and its golden rays were reflected in the sugar windows of the factory. The air smelled of roasted cocoa, a reminder of the previous day, but also of the promise that something new and wonderful was about to be born. The elves gathered again in the courtyard, their faces full of curiosity. Today, after discovering the enchanted mill, another important step awaited them, transforming the dense cocoa paste into a sweet and attractive composition by adding sugar and colorful flavors. And not just anyone could do this, but Mira, the elf with hair like rainbow rays, the one who brought joy and balance through joy. When they entered the new room, the elves were fascinated. The hall was huge, lit by chandeliers made of colored crystals. The walls were painted with vivid drawings, fruits, flowers and rainbow waves, and in the middle was an incomparable machine. The merry mixing machine. It was made up of round shiny glass bowls, pink caramel wheels and huge golden paddles that slowly rotated like dancers' arms. Tubes full of sugar crystals descended from the ceiling, and on the edges were placed containers with spices and fragrant extracts. Vanilla, cinnamon, mint, orange blossom, and many others. Sweet and colorful steam was already floating in the air, making the elves smile involuntarily. "This is your machine, Mira," said the master. "It needs your joy and imagination to give life to the chocolate. Sugar sweetens it, but you will add more color, fragrance and joy." Mira, excited, felt her heart beating fast. She was the most playful of the elves, always with a song on her lips and rainbow sparkles in her eyes. but now she had to transform her joy into an art. She approached the machine and touched the golden paddles. That moment, the mechanism came to life. The lights lit up in thousands of shades, and the sugar tubes began to vibrate, as if waiting for a sign. "The sugar must be added gradually," said the master. "But not just anyhow. Each grain must be received with joy, otherwise the sweetness remains dry, lifeless. You, Mira, are the one who will give it soul." The elves brought the cocoa paste obtained the previous day and poured it into the central bowl. The paste was thick and bitter, but full of promise. Mira raised her arms and began to sing a cheerful song, and at the same time she pressed a sugar pedal. The crystals began to fall in a silver rain, mixing with the cocoa paste. The golden paddles began to rotate, and the entire hall was filled with a melodious murmur, like an invisible choir. While the sugar dissolved, the colored vapors rose to the ceiling, forming luminous rainbows. The elves laughed in amazement, stretching their hands towards those arcs of light. "It's magic!" cried Aurelia. "No, it's Myra's joy," replied the master. "Sugar becomes alive when it is mixed with joy." But the most spectacular stage was just beginning. Mira headed towards the shelves full of bottles with magical liquids and powders. Each had a label written in gold letters: vanilla essence, fire cinnamon, refreshing mint, orange blossom, silver raspberry, salted caramel, golden hazelnut. "The flavors are the colors of the soul of chocolate," said the master. "But only Mira can decide the order and quantity. She feels what each mixture is missing." Mira closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then, one by one, she chose the bottles. She poured a few drops of vanilla, which filled the room with a warm fragrance. She added cinnamon, and the steam turned into playful red flames. Then she let the mint flow, and a cool breeze enveloped the elves. With each addition, the cocoa paste became more vivid, more complex. The flavors merged in a colorful dance. As if each taste found its partner to the climax, Mira held up a small box, filled with rainbow dust, a rare powder, kept only for special occasions. She threw a handful of dust into the bowl, and the entire room lit up. The cocoa paste turned in a velvety mass, which shone in changing shades: deep brown, bright red, gold, green and blue. It was as if the chocolate itself had become a canvas on which the colors painted endlessly. The elves were speechless. For the first time, they saw that sweets were not just food or dessert, but art, joy and emotion. "This is Myra's magic," said the master proudly. "She transforms chocolate into a celebration." When the mixture was ready, Mira poured a few pieces into small chocolate molds. The elves tasted with emotion. Leora felt the sweetness like a ray of sunshine that warmed her soul. Silva felt the freshness of nature, like a walk through the flowering forest. Nilo discovered the perfect balance between bitter and sweet, and Arion dreamed of stars and rainbows. Each taste was different, but they all felt the same thing: joy. "Myra's chocolate is not just sweet," said Melina. "It makes hearts smile." After the merriment subsided, the master gathered them together and said, "Today you learned that sweetness does not come only from sugar, but from what you put into your soul." Mira showed us that joy, play and color can transform any simple thing into a miracle. Remember, chocolate is not only food for the body, but also food for the heart. Mira smiled and looked at the others. She knew that her role was to always bring the light of the rainbow to the factory. And secretly, she told herself that there is no greater magic than that of making someone smile. The day ended with laughter and songs, and the factory resounded with joyful echoes. The elves felt that each stage brought them closer not only to the perfection of chocolate, but also to their true purpose. The sun set and the sky turned pink and gold. Mira rested her hands on the shining bowl. Inside it, the chocolate pulsed like a living heart, ready to bring joy to anyone who tasted it. And so Mirai's merry mixture became an unforgettable chapter in the factory's history, a symbol of the fact that magic lies not only in the power of machines, but in the joy that each elf adds from their own heart. Chapter 9. Smoothing the chocolate and the role of perfection. After days of discoveries and emotions, the factory was preparing for a decisive stage, refining the chocolate. The dense cocoa paste, sweetened by 𝕼𝖓 with sugar and colorful flavors, was already tasty and attractive. But it was still missing something, the finesse, the velvety, that perfection that makes each piece melt in your mouth. This mission fell to Sora, the elf known for her precision and attention to detail. Unlike 𝕼𝖓, who was playful and full of joy, Sora was calm, calculated and always careful that everything was in its place. Today, you will learn what perfection means in the art of chocolate, the master told them, leading them to the refining room. And only the sister will show us the way. The room they entered was different from all the others. It was not colorful and cheerful, like the bride's room, nor mysterious and serious like the mill's. It was shining white and orderly, like a palace of perfection, and in the middle was the refining machine, a silver metal construction, with long ice crystal rollers, which spun side by side. Everything seemed smooth, linear, and perfectly symmetrical. Each piece was placed exactly in its place, and the mechanism worked silently, without unnecessary noise. The elves immediately felt that they were in a place of discipline, and no color seemed to be out of place. No sound disturbed the silence. Everything inspired balance and rigor. "This is your world, sister," said the master. Here, perfection takes shape. On the surrounding tables were bowls of Myra's chocolate. It was dense and full of flavor, but its texture was still grainy. The sugar had not completely dissolved. The cocoa beans retained their small fragments. Refining means smoothing, the master explains. The chocolate must be as smooth as silk, and no trace of grain must remain, otherwise the spell is broken. In this process, Sora will drive the enchanted rollers that crush and align each particle, until everything becomes harmonious. Sora stepped forward, looking seriously at the machine. For her, this stage was like a calling. She had always been attracted to order, symmetry, the beauty of small details. She knew that perfection is not just an ideal, but a path that everyone must walk patiently. The chocolate paste was poured between the giant crystal rollers. First, the noise was harsh, like the rustling of gravel. But slowly, as the rollers rotated, the sound turned into a delicate vibration, like the song of a harp. The sister closed her eyes and put her hand on the central lever. She felt every movement of the rollers, every resistance of the particles. It was as if the chocolate itself was speaking to her, begging her to make it smoother, more harmonious. "A little more," she whispered. "It's not velvety enough yet." She adjusted the speed of the rollers, with careful and precise gestures. The elves watched in fascination as the paste transformed, little by little, into a smooth and uniform wave, shining in the light like a liquid mirror. As the process continued, the whole filled with luminous images. The crystal rollers projected scenes from the world of perfection. A flower that opens flawlessly, a river that flows smoothly without eddies, a star that sparkles equally in all directions. "See," Sora said without opening her eyes. Perfection is not about being more or less. It is about balance, about each part finding its right place. Melina smiled, recognizing that each of the elves' gifts connected to each other. If she had added the flavors and the joy, Sora brought the peace and the perfect shape. But at some point, the machine began to shake. One of the drums had jammed, and the chocolate was in danger of becoming too thick, losing its smoothness. The elves were scared, but Sora remained calm. "I have to trust my senses," she said. She touched the jammed drum and felt its vibration. Then, with precise movements, she regulated the flow of chocolate, adjusting the pressure and temperature. The machine let out a deep sigh and quieted down, and the process continued without a hitch. Perfection does not mean the absence of mistakes, she told the others. It means recognizing them and correcting them until everything is back in balance. When the process was over, the rollers released a chocolate so smooth that it looked like liquid velvet. The elves stared at it in amazement. Its texture was uniform, without a trace of roughness. The sister took a spoon and tasted it first. Her eyes lit up. "Now it's complete," she said. "Now the chocolate can tell its story in its true beauty." The other elves tasted it too. Melina felt that the flavors intertwined perfectly, without confusing each other. Nilo discovered the absolute balance between bitter and sweet, and Mira felt the joy of colors smoothed into a calm symphony. The master looked at them with pride and said, "Today you learned that perfection is not an end of the road, but a continuous process. Sister showed us that every detail counts, that beauty lies in the harmony of the little ones. Without refinement, chocolate remains incomplete, no matter how aromatic it is." Sister smiled discreetly. For her, it was not a reason for praise, but a duty. She knew that perfection was a work of every moment, and that her role was to ensure that no step was taken in a hurry. In the evening, when they left the refining room, the elves looked at the clear sky and felt that a new lesson had settled in their hearts. Perfection was not a burden, but a joy, that of transforming simple things into treasures. And for Sora, this day was the beginning of a mission. To always seek harmony in the details and to bring to the chocolate that smoothness that made it not only good, but memorable. Thus, Sora's refining remained in the history of the factory as the symbol of perfection, not as an impossible ideal, but as the art of balance and patience. Chapter 10: Rin's Courage and the Confectionery. After Sora had shown them the importance of perfection and balance, the elves felt ready to move on to a new stage. The chocolate was now smooth, but it still lacked that mysterious fluidity that makes it flow smoothly, settle into shapes, and envelop the taste buds with a wealth of flavors. The master painter called everyone into a huge room that seemed different from all the others. The walls were covered with paintings of liquid gold, and in the middle sat a huge machine, like a heart that beat incessantly. From it came a rhythmic sound, a mixture of beats and murmurs, like the waves of the sea breaking on the shore. "This is the heart of fluidity," said the master. "The confection is the last great test before the chocolate becomes truly perfect. And only one of you can start it." Rin was the bravest of the elves, but also the most restless. He liked to throw himself into adventures, to be the first to try new things. Sometimes he used his courage without thinking too much about the consequences. But no one could dispute his big heart and contagious energy. He had tousled brown hair and chocolate-colored eyes, which sparkled with enthusiasm whenever a challenge arose. For him, every obstacle was a chance to prove his boldness. "Me?" Rin asked, surprised but also proud. "Yes, you," the master confirmed. "Because only courage can set the heart of fluidity in motion. But do not rush, for this is not a test of strength, but of endurance, patience, and self-control." The elves approached to take a closer look at the machine. It was made up of huge metal blades that rotated slowly, rubbing the chocolate like endless waves. Inside, everything seemed like a dark and dense ocean. "Conching is the process by which chocolate breathes," explains the master. "Through continuous and careful movement, air penetrates it, the flavors mix, the texture becomes supple and fluid. But for this, the one who drives it must have the courage not to give in, because the machine takes time, sometimes hours, and temptations and difficulties will appear at every step." Rin placed his hand on the central lever. The machine vibrated under his touch, as if asking him if he was ready. The elf took a deep breath and pressed firmly. Suddenly, the room was filled with a deep roar, and the chocolate began to move. The rotating blades spun slowly but steadily, rubbing the dense mass of chocolate first. The smell was strong, even overwhelming, bitter, intense, almost suffocating. Don't be discouraged, the master told him. You must have the courage to go through the storm of the beginning. The raw flavors must be defeated, to make way for the delicate ones. Rin gritted his teeth. I won't give up. As time passed, the process seemed endless. The chocolate wasn't changing its shape as quickly as Rin had hoped. He felt his arms tired, and the repetitive sound of the machine had become a test of patience. Why don't you speed up? Whispered the tempting voice of the machine. You could finish faster. Hurry up the process, no one will notice. Rin flinched. He looked at the lever that controlled the speed. It was true. He could turn it and make the blades move twice as fast. But he remembered the master's words. True courage is not to run fast, but to stay when everyone else would give up. No, I will continue properly, he murmured. Hours had passed. The elves, sitting on the sidelines, watched him with admiration. Rin remained at his post, his hands clenched on the lever, his eyes fixed on the movement of the chocolate. Every time fatigue knocked him down, he took a deep breath and remembered his goal, to transform the raw paste into a fluid and lively sea, and slowly, the transformation began to show itself. The bitter smell softened, and a warm, velvety aroma spread in the air, with sweet and deep notes. The chocolate became more and more supple, letting itself be carried by the movement of the blades like liquid silk. As the machine worked, the walls of the room transformed. The elves saw scenes from Rin's life projected into the air. Moments when he had faced his fears, when he had thrown himself into rapid rivers to save a friend, when he had faced his own doubts. Confectionery is also a test of the soul, whispered the master. Chocolate becomes fluid only when the one who runs it fluidizes his own heart, faces his fears and transforms his audacity into patience. Rin felt how the images strengthened him. His courage was not just the desire to throw himself forward, but the power to resist, not to give in to difficulties. At a certain point, the blades stopped suddenly. The machine groaned, as if it could no longer bear the tension. The chocolate risked hardening. Again. The elves started in fright. If it stops now, all is lost, 𝕮𝖫 shouted. Rin felt his heart beating fast. It was the decisive moment. He looked up at the others and said, I am not giving up. The machine feeds on my courage, and I have enough for all of us. With a loud cry, he pressed the lever again and put all his energy into the mechanism. The car shook, then settled back on its feet, its constant rhythm. The chocolate, as if waiting for that impulse of courage, began to flow smoothly, without any resistance. The room was filled with golden light. The smell was now irresistible, sweet, intense, full of promise. The elves felt the aromas penetrate their souls, giving them energy and joy. The chocolate in the machine was fluid, velvety, and uniform. Its flow resembled a river of liquid light, ready to be poured into molds. Rin, tired but happy, let go of the lever. The master painter looked at him with shining eyes. You succeeded, Rin. You showed us that true courage does not lie in thoughtless haste, but in the patience that overcomes trials. Through you, chocolate learned to breathe. And the evening, when the elves tasted the confit chocolate, they understood the power of this stage. The texture was perfect, fluid and silky, and the aromas intertwined in a symphony of tastes. Sweet, bitter, velvety, deep. Mira laughed with joy. It's like a joyful song that flows without stopping. The sister approved. And it's perfectly balanced. 𝕮𝖫 picked up a piece and said, it's as if the chocolate had gained a soul. And Rin, watching the chocolate flowing smoothly, understood that this day was not only a victory over a machine, but also over his own impatience. Chapter 11. Tovi's Dreams. After Rin had managed to transform the chocolate into a fluid and perfectly balanced mass through conching, The elves were ready for the next step, the stage. The chocolate needed to receive its final character, that touch of magic and mystery that would transform it into something truly special. And for this, 𝕉𝖆's dreams were needed, the dreamy elf, with eyes always on the stars and a mind full of imagination. 𝕉𝖆 was different from the others. While 𝕉𝖆 prided himself on his courage and Sora on his perfection, and 𝕼𝖓 on his cheerfulness and color, 𝕉𝖆 had the gift of seeing what others could not perceive. His dreams were not simple fantasies, they were bridges between the material and magical worlds, between chocolate and the flavors of the universe. Today, the chocolate will receive its final soul, the master painter told them. But for this, we must let ourselves be guided by dreams. 𝕉𝖆, you are the one who will lead the process. The room was completely different from all the others. The walls were translucent, like crystal screens, on which constellations and galaxies were reflected, and in the middle was the infuser, a huge construction made of violet glass, in which the already fluid chocolate rested, waiting for the magic. Delicate tubes descended from the ceiling, filled with stardust and leaves of rare spices. Golden cinnamon, lunar vanilla, night flower petals, crystal nutmeg, dawn cardamom, and other magical ingredients. Each spice had an aroma that seemed to speak directly to the soul. Infusion is not just the addition of flavors, the master explained. It is an act of dreaming, a connection between the elf's thoughts and the soul of the chocolate. Each ingredient will be guided by 𝕉𝖆's imagination. 𝕉𝖆 stepped towards the bowl, eyes wide and sparkling. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the smell of the chocolate and the vibrations of the stardust. My dreams must touch the chocolate, he murmured. I must make it feel the universe, taste the magic. 𝕉𝖆's every move was accompanied by a subtle light, gold and silver. When she reached for a tube of spices, it vibrated slightly and opened, releasing sparkling particles that fell into the bowl. The elves watched in fascination as the flavors mixed with the chocolate, transforming each spoonful into a completely new experience. It's like a symphony of tastes and colors, Melina whispered. Each flavor has its own story. But the most spectacular moment was the stardust. When 𝕉𝖆 shook the first bag of cosmic dust, the bowl lit up with a blue and silver aura. The particles of light floated above the chocolate, like little stars floating in a liquid sea. Stardust gives our dreams substance, said 𝕉𝖆. Without it, chocolate would be beautiful, but not magical. The chocolate slowly absorbed the glittering particles, and the subtle and mysterious aroma spread throughout the room. Each inhalation brought sensations of dreaming, of flying among galaxies and luminous butterflies. The elves felt their imagination come to life in the aromas of chocolate. 𝕉𝖆 did not limit himself to pouring powder and spices. He combined, swirled, mixed with movements inspired by his own visions. Sometimes he added more cinnamon, sometimes a handful of lunar vanilla, sometimes he closed his eyes and let the chocolate mix itself, guided by his energy. It's risky, observed 𝕉𝖆. You never know what will come out. But that's the magic of dreams, 𝕉𝖆 replied. You have to take risks, have the courage to experiment. And indeed, with each movement, the chocolate changed its texture and aroma, becoming more complex, deeper. Each taste was a story, sweet, spicy, warm, mysterious, all intertwined in a subtle harmony. 𝕉𝖆 continued. The room transformed into a light show. The stardust projected constellations in the air, and the chocolate itself seemed to shine from within. The elves saw images of their own desires and dreams, flowers blooming in an instant, rivers flowing with the light of dawn, rainbows floating over enchanted forests. Each aroma, each particle, carries a memory or a dream, said Sora. And 𝕉𝖆 brings them to life. Each elf understood that infusion was not just a technical step in the production of chocolate. It was an act of art and soul, where imagination and magic intertwined with precise movements. When the dish was ready, 𝕉𝖕 poured a few spoonfuls into small molds. The elves tasted with emotion. The aroma was extraordinary, a combination of sweet, bitter, spicy and fragrant, all linked by a subtle magical sparkle, which made each piece unique. "It's as if we could travel through 𝕉𝖕's dreams," said Aurelia. "And to feel them in every part of the soul," added Melina. Even Rin, always impulsive, was amazed by the delicacy and depth of the taste. Chocolate was no longer just fluid and velvety, it was an experience that combined imagination and reality. Master Painter looked at everyone with pride. "Today you learned that the magic of chocolate does not come only from technical processes, grinding, conching, refining. It also comes from dreams, from the courage to imagine and from the desire to transform each particle into a story." 𝕉𝖕, smiling shyly, felt that his mission had been accomplished. But he knew that this was just the beginning. The chocolate was now full of life, ready to be poured into molds and reach the hearts of those who would taste it. Chapter 12. Dora and the Perfume of Dreams. After 𝕉𝖕 had poured her dreams into the infuser, transforming the chocolate into a fluid sea, shimmering and full of stories, it seemed that everything had already been touched by magic. But the master painter knew better. True perfection had not yet been achieved. Chocolate needed stability, balance, and a peaceful heart, and this could only be achieved through tempering. "We have reached the final stage," he said in a deep but warm voice. "And only Dara can accomplish this last act of creation. Because tempering does not only mean technique, it means harmony, patience, and the fragrance of pure dreams." Dara was the quietest of the elves. She had long, silver hair, and her eyes sparkled like two cocoa beans in the moonlight. Everyone knew that her gift was deep sensitivity. She could feel the subtle vibrations of things. She could hear the hidden song of rivers or the whispers of night flowers. For her, every smell, every perfume was a bridge to the world of dreams. When the rest of the elves laughed or worked hurriedly, Dara would stop to sniff the scent of the wind or observe how a ray of sunlight changed the aroma of a flower. Therefore, the master painter knew that only she could accomplish the last stage, to give the chocolate the balance and fragrance that would make it eternal. The room where the tempering took place was different from all the others. It was not filled with noisy machines, nor with glowing tubes. In their place, there was a long table of black crystal, cool and smooth, reflecting the light of the burning lanterns. Above, floated perfume bells, filled with delicate essences. Essence of cocoa flower, oil of wild vanilla, white mint steam and vapors of night jasmine. In one corner of the room, a delicate machine, with golden wings, stirred the chocolate slowly, letting it breathe and find its balance. "Tempering means patience and attention," said 𝕍𝖑. "Chocolate must be heated and cooled with precision, until it finds its perfect shape. Only then will it be smooth, shiny and ready to hold the fragrance of dreams." Dara placed her delicate hands on the edges of the crystal table and closed her eyes. She felt the chocolate flow in warm, soft waves, waiting for her touch. She breathed deeply and let the scent of the essences in the bells fill her soul. "Chocolate is like a heart that beats between fire and coolness," she whispered. "It must learn to be balanced, not to burn, but not to freeze either. She must breathe in the fragrance of dreams and become one with them." She began to pour the chocolate onto the crystal table, letting it spread like a shimmering river. With the silver paddles, she lifted it and let it fall again, rising and falling, repeating the movement with the grace of a dance. The chocolate flowed like a ribbon of dark silk, and each wave brought a subtle sound, like barely audible music. As she worked, Dara touched the bells with her fingertips, and the essences began to slowly pour out, mixing with the chocolate steam. Each fragrance brought a special note. The cocoa flower gave it a gentle sweetness, like a lullaby. The wild vanilla brought the warmth and familiarity of memories. The white mint added the freshness of a morning dream. and the night jasmine enveloped everything in a subtle, romantic, and deep mystery. Dara inhaled each scent and let it touch her heart, then transmitted it to the chocolate through her smooth movements. The elves watched in silence, fascinated by the way everything seemed to become a dance between the elf and the chocolate. When the tempering was nearing its end, Dara closed her eyes again and let her own dreams rise into the air. She imagined a field full of nocturnal flowers, where their fragrance rose like a silver mist under the starlight. She imagined fragrant rivers flowing through the forests, bringing freshness and joy. She imagined every desire of her soul tied to a unique fragrance. And then, a discreet light began to radiate from her body, and the fragrance of her dreams, a sweet and mysterious mixture, impossible to describe, spread throughout the room. The chocolate absorbed it immediately, as if it had been waiting for it forever. "This is my gift to you," Dara whispered to the chocolate. "May the scent of my dreams accompany you, to bring joy to anyone who tastes you." The chocolate, now tempered, was smooth and shiny like the mirror of the night. The elves came closer to look at it. "It's like a lake of stars," Mira murmured. "And I can smell the scent. It's as if dreams were hidden in every note," Sora added. "You succeeded, Dara," Rin said with admiration. "You made the chocolate breathe like a living being." The master painter smiled broadly. "Tempering is the key that opens the final gate. Now chocolate will not be just a mixture of ingredients, it will be a solidified dream, preserved forever." To test the result, Dara poured some of the tempered chocolate into small heart shapes. After it cooled, they shone like black jewels, delicate and fragrant. The elves took a bite. The moment the chocolate touched their lips, they all felt the same thing, a gentle warmth, a mysterious perfume that awakened their memories and hidden dreams. Tea was more than taste, it was a fragrant story, written in their hearts. "This is the final magic," Aurelia said with wet eyes. "Not just eating the chocolate, but living the dream hidden in it." That evening, when the process was over, the master painter gathered the elves around him. "Today I learned the most important lesson. Each stage was necessary: roasting, grinding, mixing, refining, conching, infusing dreams. But without tempering, without balance and fragrance, everything would have remained unstable and fleeting. Dara showed us that dreams need stability to last." Dara smiled shyly, her cheeks red, but in her heart she knew that she had fulfilled her destiny. She was not the strongest or boldest elf, but she was the one who knew how to listen to the whispers of things. And now, the whispers of chocolate thanked her for the fragrance of dreams. That night, as the sky filled with stars, the elves watched the chocolate shapes resting on the crystal table. They were ready to be sent out into the world, ready to give joy to whoever would taste them. Dara, looking through the high window, felt the scent of her own work floating in the air. She knew that somewhere, someday, someone would bite into that chocolate and smell the scent of her dream. And so, the magic of the land of the goblins would spread, fragrant and luminous, to all corners of the world. Chapter 13. The Goblins' Shapes. Dara's tempered chocolate shone on the crystal table like a dark sea, perfectly balanced and fragrant. The goblins stood around it wide-eyed, aware that they were facing a turning point. All their work, the roasting, grinding, mixing, refining, conching, and infusing with dreams, had brought them here. But the master painter knew that the magic was not yet complete. The chocolate had to take shape and identity, to become more than a fragrant liquid. Only then would it be ready to be shared with the world. "My dear elves," said 𝕍𝖑, raising his staff encrusted with pieces of crystallized sugar, "today you will see how your chocolate comes alive, and the shapes we will create. There will be not only beauty, but also story, soul and memory." The hall where everything was going to happen was the largest in the entire factory. It was round, with walls covered in golden mirrors, which multiplied any reflection of light. Thousands of star-shaped lanterns hung from the ceiling, shining with a warm glow similar to late summer sunsets, and in the middle was a huge platform, where dozens of molds were placed. Some simple, others complicated, carved with patterns inspired by nature, others depicting mythical figures and fairy tale characters. But the most important of all were the elves' molds, shapes created by Master 𝕍𝖑 himself, each designed to come to life and tell a story. These are no ordinary molds, the master explains. Each one is carefully sculpted and endowed with a spark of magic. The chocolate, once poured into them, will take not only the shape, but also the spirit that you carry in your soul. Master 𝕍𝖑 lifts a huge crystal ladle and dips it into the liquid chocolate. The elves watched in fascination as the dark, fragrant liquid rose, sparkling gently in the lantern light. With a ritualistic movement, the master poured the chocolate into the first mold. The sound of the flow was soothing, like a river flowing into a lake. Each mold slowly filled, and the fragrance of Dara's infused dreams rose into the air again, like a light breeze. Each form is an act of creation, said 𝕍𝖑. But what matters is not only the chocolate, but also the thought we pour into it. Think of yourself, your gifts, your stories. That way, the figures will not only be beautiful, but also alive. The first mold opened under the master's hands, and from it came a delicate chocolate figure, a small elf, with wide wings and a serene smile. The elves burst into applause. Look! Mira shouted, jumping happily. It's like looking into a magic mirror. Yes, confirmed 𝕍𝖑. This is the first of the shapes, a symbol of innocence and play. Tea will remind everyone that joy is as important as perfection. One by one, other figures came to life. Elves with pointed hats, dancing elves, elves playing instruments, elves carrying flowers or stars in their hands. Each one was a perfect miniature, molded from the fragrant and smooth chocolate. 𝕍𝖑, smiling enigmatically, picks up a special mold, larger and brighter than the others. Now it's time to mold your figures, children of the dream, he said. Because each of you has given something unique to this chocolate, and now the magic must bear your face. The elves looked at each other, amazed and excited. We in chocolate? Asks Nilo with wide eyes. Yes, you, the master replied. Chocolate would not exist without your gifts. Through your shapes, those who taste it will remember the work and soul of each one. So, one by one, 𝕍𝖑 poured the chocolate into the 7 unique molds. Lena's figure, delicate and full of energy, had a small golden flame in her hands, symbolizing the roasting of the grains and the magic of taste. Nilo's figure, robust and firm, held a miniature mill, a sign of strength and patience. Myra's figure, cheerful and colorful, was depicted with a wand from which sparkles of sugar and aromas poured. Sora's figure, sober and elegant, was sculpted with a crystal feather, a symbol of perfection and smoothness. Rin's figure, courageous and daring, appeared with wings of fire, embodying the power of confection. Tovi's figure, dreamy and luminous, was represented with a globe of stars, a symbol of infused dreams. Dara's figure, diaphanous and mysterious, held a fragrant flower in her arms, a symbol of temperance and the fragrance of dreams. When the figures came out of the molds, the elves recognized themselves in them, but they also felt that magic had amplified their qualities. They were ideal versions, transformed into chocolate, which preserved both the beauty and the story of each one, but the real surprise was only then to come. When 𝕍𝖑 placed the figures on the central table, they began to sparkle. One by one, they moved their hands and wings, as if they were alive. Look! Aurelia shouted. They moved. And indeed, the figures were not simple chocolate statuettes. They were alive in their own way, animated by the magic of casting and the gifts of the elves. They danced, sang and smiled, spreading the scent of fresh chocolate and warm light. "This is the power of shapes," said the master painter. "They are not just sweets, but living memories, pieces of magic that will accompany anyone who tastes them." The elves were overwhelmed with emotion. "It is as if a part of us has come to life in the chocolate," whispered Lena. "And now every person who tastes it will feel our story," added 𝕉𝖆𝖈. "Yes," Dora confirmed, with a gentle smile. "And the fragrance of dreams will reach their hearts." Rin, who had always been the boldest, clenched his fists and said, "We must take care of this magic. Because it is not only ours, it is a gift for all." The master looked at the dancing figures and said solemnly, "Today you have learned what full creation means. You have worked, you have dreamed, you have added from your soul. But only when the chocolate took shape, the story ended. The shapes are the bridge between the world and your hearts." Then he added, with a mysterious smile, "But don't forget, my dears, chocolate is not eternal. It will melt, it will be tasted, it will disappear. And this is precisely its beauty, because it remains alive only in the hearts of those who have felt the magic." Evening had descended again over the land of the elves. The elves looked at the figures of chocolate moving and dancing on the central table. They seemed like children of light and fragrance, ready to be sent into the world. For the first time, the 7 elves understood what it meant to see your gifts transformed into a living work of art. Chocolate was no longer just a dessert, it was a story sculpted in shape, taste and fragrance. And so the elf shapes would become not only a creation of the factory, but also a legend in itself, remembered by all who would ever taste their magic. Chapter 14. The Enchanted Cart. After the chocolate figures had been created, dancing and smiling on the crystal tables, the elves knew that their magic could not remain only in the factory hall. The chocolate was ready to be sent into the world, to bring joy and the fragrance of dreams to all who would taste it. But how could they transport it, so that it would remain protected and not lose any of its sparkle of charm? The master painter smiled mysteriously, as if he had expected this question from the first moment. "You have worked with your soul, and now it is time for your journey to be just as magical. You will not use any ordinary carriage, no earthly chariot. We will create the enchanted wagon, a unique vehicle, made from the very essence of flavors and sweets, meant to protect and accompany the chocolate on its journey." The elves stepped into the secret room where the wagon was to be built. It was an ancient workshop, hidden under the roots of a giant oak tree, where the air smelled of cinnamon, caramel, and fresh mint. The walls were carved in the shapes of sweet spirals, and the floor was paved with mosaics of hardened biscuits, and the long tables were unusual materials: giant cinnamon logs, sugar crystals, stardust, shiny red velvet, and threads of sweet gold. They were ready to be joined together by the hands and magic of the elves. "This is not just a cart," the master painter told them. "It is a temple on wheels, a work of art that will keep within it the perfume and dreams. Each of you will contribute to it, just as you contributed to the chocolate." The first step was to create the skeleton of the cart. The wood chosen was not ordinary, but came from the eternal cinnamon tree, grown on the edge of the enchanted forest. This wood had a soft and fragrant texture, but it was more resistant than any oak. Nilo, with his strong arms, lifted the cinnamon logs and placed them on the magical chassis. Lena lit her golden flame and softened the wood, so that it could be bent and curved delicately. But with her sensitivity, she chose the most aromatic pieces, so that the entire cart would spread perfume with every breeze. "It will be a cart that you can not only see, but also feel," said Mira, inhaling deeply the sweet spicy smell. "The scent of cinnamon will accompany us every step of the way." Thus, in just a few hours, the walls and frame of the cart were ready, a fragrant rectangle, with details carved in the shapes of leaves and spirals, as if they had been worked by invisible artisans. The second challenge was the wheels. The master painter showed them a pile of huge, translucent crystals of pure sugar. These wheels must not only move, but also illuminate the path and protect the cart from obstacles. For this, they will be made of enchanted sugar. The sister, with the gift of perfection, takes care of polishing the crystals. She smooths them until each sugar disc sparkles like a diamond in the light of the lanterns. Rin, with his energy, places them on the axles, tapping them gently to fix them to his touch. The wheels began to vibrate and produce a melodic hum, like the song of bells. When the cart was lifted, the elves saw the miracle. The wheels did not just rotate, but left behind a luminous trail, like a trail of stars. Wherever the cart went, the ground was soaked with sweet sparkles, and the road became friendlier. But the most important part was the box, the place where the chocolate and figurines were to be placed for the journey. The master took out a giant roll of red velvet, soft as sunset clouds. "This is no ordinary velvet," he told them. "It was woven from threads of sunset rays and jasmine scent. It will keep the chocolate at the perfect temperature and protect the scent of its dreams. But caress the material and feel its warm vibration, like a living earth." Tovy, dreamer that he was, began to embroider constellations of sweet gold threads on the edges of the small velvet, each representing a dream of his own. Mira added colorful ribbons, and Lena braided the edges with melted caramel lace, which immediately hardened into delicate shapes. When the box was placed in the cart, the entire room was filled with warm light and perfume. The elves knew that this was the place where their magic would be kept safe. The cart was not only functional, it had to be a real jewel. Aurelia sprinkled stardust on the roof, making it shine like the sky night. Rin stared ahead at two magic lanterns, which lit up on their own, fueled by the energy of his courage. On either side of the cart, the elves carved small symbols: ears of wheat, cocoa flowers, river waves, and shooting stars. Each symbol was linked to a stage of their work, like a visual story about how chocolate was born. When the work was finished, the cart looked like a dream on wheels. The scent of cinnamon, starlight, sparkling sugar wheels, and a soft velvet box. "Now let's see if it works," said the master painter, climbing into the cart and tightening the reins made of licorice ribbons. In front of them appeared two enchanted horses, with manes of cotton candy and eyes of melted caramel. They were the cart's protectors, created especially to drive it. When Zugga touched the reins, the horses rose to their feet and let out a melodious neigh. The sugar wheels set in motion, leaving behind luminous trails. The cart glided smoothly, as if it were floating. The elves ran around it, laughing and clapping. "It's perfect," Mira shouted. "It's like a story you can touch." "And it smells wonderful," added Dara, feeling the scent of cinnamon rising in sweet waves. Master Zugga stopped the cart and got out, looking at the elves. "See, my dears. Everything you have created so far, the chocolate, the dreams, the perfume, needs a road, a means of being shared. The cart is not just a vehicle, it is the connection between you and the world, it is the way your magic will reach where it is needed." The elves agreed, understanding that each stage of their work was part of a whole. The chocolate was not just for them, but for all those who would taste it and feel the story hidden in it. That evening, under the star-spangled sky, the enchanted cart shone in the moonlight. The elves watched it with pride and emotion. It was ready to set off on its first journey, carrying in its velvet box the most precious treasures: the chocolate figures, full of perfume, dreams, and magic. And so the enchanted cart became not just a means of transportation, but a symbol of hope and joy. Wherever it went, to arrive, it would leave behind the scent of cinnamon, starlight, and sweet smiles. Chapter 15. The Whipped Cream Meadows. The enchanted carriage, pulled by horses with cotton candy manes, swayed gently on the road strewn with stars left behind by the sugar wheels. The elves, excited after seeing their creation in motion for the first time, looked ahead with hearts full of curiosity. To the edge of the horizon, a milky white light began to appear, diffuse and soft, stretching like a sea of foam. As they approached, they discovered that it was not an illusion, but a vast realm, comprised of entire meadows covered with fluffy, whipped cream grass. The elves got out of the cart and walked on the meadow. Their souls sank into a soft carpet, white as snow, but warm and sweet. Each blade of grass was a thin curl of whipped cream, which swayed in the breeze and spread a delicate scent of fresh milk. "It's like walking on clouds," said Dora, leaning back and laughing, while the whipped cream shaped itself around her body like a dream bed. "And the taste." Mira bent down and broke off a blade of grass, which she put on her tongue. It's sweet, but not too much. Just enough to give you a feeling of happiness." Nilo, curious, tore off a bunch and crushed it in his fists. From it gushed a whitish liquid, like foamy milk, which spread a velvety aroma around. "This is the sap of the meadow," explains the master painter. "It is food for the vanilla bees and for many other creatures that live here. But we can also taste it. The meadow offers us its gifts without getting upset, if we take it in moderation." Suddenly, the elves heard a gentle buzz, different from a usual buzz of insects, from the small cream cup-shaped flowers that appeared here and there among the whipping cream. Unusual bees were flying. Their wings were transparent like melted sugar, and their bodies were striped not with yellow and black, but with white and beige, like vanilla pods. "Vanilla bees," Aurelia exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "I had read about them in storybooks, but I had never actually seen them." Their hum was melodious, almost musical. They would spin in orderly circles, landing on the flowers and extracting the sweet sap. After a few moments, they would rise and scatter a fine vanilla powder around, which spread like a warm perfume, enveloping the elves. "It smells like homemade cookies," Mira said, taking a deep breath. "It's not just the scent that's magical," Zugha told them. "This powder preserves the freshness of the whipped cream and the balance of the meadow. Everything here is a circle of life, where sweetness doesn't spoil, but nourishes and protects." The elves, amazed and delighted, let themselves be carried away by joy. Rin threw himself into a roll, raising waves of whipped cream around him, as if he were playing with soft snow. The sister, usually careful and perfectionist, allowed herself to laugh out loud for the first time, running through the strands of whipped cream that stuck to her clothes like ribbons. Tovy took out her notebook and began to draw. The scenes, the translucent bees, the white grass, his laughing friends, and each line, she added a trace of sweet gold, as if she wanted to transform the moment into an eternal painting. Dara stretched out her hands and felt the meadow it answered, swaying under her steps. The whipgrass seemed to recognize her, responding to her calm energy. "It accepts us," she said. "We are welcomed here as if we were part of this place." As they stood in the meadow, several vanilla bees came closer to the elves. One of them landed right on Maya's palm. He was light, barely noticeable, but it left behind a golden trail and an intense vanilla scent. "They are peaceful," Lena said, looking at them fascinated. "They have no needle, because they don't need to sting. Their protection is their perfume, which intoxicates and calms anyone who would want to harm them. Vanilla bees show us something essential. Strength does not come only from stings or weapons. Sometimes, the greatest shield is the beauty and the perfume you spread. Remember this, because our path will not always be so gentle." The elves listened in silence, aware that the meadow was not only a beautiful place, but also a lesson in wisdom. Before leaving, Zugha taught them how to pick a small basket of whipped cream. The elves delicately plucked a few strands, which immediately turned into a dense foam, ready to be stored in sugar jars. The bees, grateful for the elves' gentleness, gathered in swarms and sprinkled their vanilla powder over the jars. Thus, the elves received the vanilla whipped cream of the meadow, a unique ingredient, meant to give chocolate a velvety softness and an incomparable fragrance. "This is their gift to you," said the master. "Remember that every gift comes with a responsibility. This whipped cream must be used with care and respect." When they got back into the cart, the elves looked back at the white meadow, which sparkled in the sunlight like an endless sea of whipped milk. Bees flew above, forming a diaphanous rainbow of translucent wings. Rin, with his hand on his heart, whispered, "I promise I will never forget this day. Here I learned that joy is sometimes sweeter than any cake." The cart started moving, the sugar wheels leaving shiny trails across the meadow. The cotton candy horses neighed melodiously, and the scent of cinnamon from the wood of the cart mixed with the vanilla aroma of the meadow tea was a perfect start to a long and wonderful journey. Thus, the elves discovered the meadows of whipped cream, a land of delicacy and purity, where the grass was fluffy like clouds of milk and where the vanilla bees taught anyone who entered to live through beauty and fragrance, not through force. From now on, in their velvet box, alongside the chocolate figurines, was also the vanilla whipped cream of the meadow, but of the bees. It was the first ingredient in the wide world to be added to their treasure, an ingredient meant to transform chocolate into a true bridge between magic and the hearts of people. And the enchanted cart, with sugar wheels and the scent of cinnamon, continued its journey to the next wonders of the land. Chapter 16. The Caramel Forest. The enchanted cart, loaded with chocolate figurines and the gift of the whipped cream meadows, moved slowly along the road sprinkled with sweet sparks. The sun had risen higher, illuminating the land of the elves with warm rays, which seemed to announce a new discovery. In the distance, as the white whipped cream meadows retreated, the elves saw a dark and bright sea at the same time. It was a dense forest, but not like those in the human world. The tree trunks glittered like molten gold, and the air smelled invitingly of burnt sugar and milk. "This is the Caramel Forest," said the master painter in a voice full of respect, "a place where every tree is alive, sweet and sonorous. Here we will learn that beauty is not only to be seen, but also to be heard." The elves stopped the cart at the edge of the forest and looked on in fascination. The trees were tall and majestic, with smooth, shining golden bark. Some seemed liquid, as if they had been sculpted from waves of melted caramel, then hardened in the sun. Others were darker in color, like a crunchy caramel with amber iridescence. The leaves, on the other hand, were not green, but copper and transparent, like thin sheets of sugar. With every breeze, they rustled melodiously, producing a sound like a gentle choir of glass bells. "Listen," Dara whispered, raising her hands. "It's like a symphony." And indeed, the forest was singing, not only through the rustling of the leaves, but also through the light crackling of the caramel that was warming up under the sun and cooling down again, like a living breath. Nilo, fascinated by the huge trunks, approached one of the trees. He touched it with his palm and felt a gentle warmth. From the place where his hand had pressed, a drop of liquid caramel flowed, thick and fragrant. "Is it edible?" Rin asked, already greedy. "Yes," said 𝕍𝖑, "but carefully. Each tree offers only as much as it needs. If you take more, it loses its voice, and the forest stops singing." The elves each tasted a drop. The aroma was intense, sweet, slightly bitter, warm, with notes of milk and sun. "It's the best caramel in the world," Mira sighed. "I feel it warms my soul." Advancing deeper into the forest, the elves discovered carpets of dry leaves, transparent like broken sugar. When they stepped on them, a fine crackling could be heard under their feet, like a discreet orchestra. 𝕮𝖆𝖓 lifted one of the leaves and looked at it in the sunlight. It was colored in thousands of golden and reddish shades, and inside it seemed to vibrate a light. "These leaves are keepers of song," said the master. "They catch the music of the wind and release it when they break or break. and gently crushing a leaf between their fingers, a melodious chord was heard, like a sweet harp. The elves were amazed. Each leaf carried a musical note in it. "It's a forest symphony," Rin shouted, bouncing on the leaves like a drum. "And every step is a different melody," Aurelia added, fascinated. As they advanced, strange and gentle creatures emerged from the trunks. They were crunchy caramel squirrels, with long, coiled tails that gave off golden sparks with every movement. They flew from branch to branch, leaving sweet crumbs behind. Below, among the roots, hid brown sugar bunnies, rummaging through the leaves to collect the dried caramel powder. "Everyone lives in harmony," observed Sora. "The forest is not only for the eyes and ears, but also for them." A flock of delicate birds, with amber feathers, took flight. When they beat their wings, the sound was like crystal bells, completing the symphony of the forest. But the beauty of the forest also hit a challenge. At one point, the elves heard a louder noise, like a groaned old tree, as tall as a tower, was losing its leaves. They were falling, not singing, but cracking harshly, like discordant notes. "What's happening?" Mira asked, frightened. "It's a sick tree," said 𝕍𝖑 gravely. "Someone took too much caramel from its trunk, and now it has lost its balance. The forest is asking for our help." The elves gathered. Dara placed her palm on the bark and felt the tree's pain, like a deep sadness. Nilo brought water from a nearby spring, and Lena lit her golden flame, melting a little caramel to cover the wound. Tavi took out a transparent leaf and drew a symbol of life on it, then placed it at the root of the tree. That moment, the rustling of the leaves changed. The harsh sound softened, turning into a warm melody, and the tree raised its golden branches again. "We succeeded," smiled Rin. "We brought the music back." Master Painter looked at the elves with pride. "See, my dears. Caramel, like life, is good and sweet only when taken in moderation. Greed destroys balance, and harmony turns into noise. Learn from this forest to respect the gifts received." The elves agreed, keeping the lesson in their hearts and gratitude. The forest offers them a gift. The squirrels brought a basket made of leaves, full of golden caramel crystals, small and translucent pieces that shone like precious stones. "These will add not only taste, but also melody to your chocolate," said 𝕍𝖑. "Each crystal carries a musical note in it. When it melts in your mouth, the chocolate will sing." The elves were amazed. Their chocolate would not only be sweet, but also sonorous, a true symphony of tastes and sounds. When they climbed back into the cart, the rustling leaves rose in the wind and composed a farewell melody for them. The horses with cotton candy manis set off, and the elves looked back, still under the golden spell of the forest. "It's as if we carry a new song in our hearts," said Aurelia. "And I think this song will never leave us," added Dara. The sugar wheels of the cart left luminous trails among the golden leaves. The caramel forest was left behind, but its sweet scent and the symphony of leaves continued to resonate in the hearts of the elves. Thus, the elves passed through the caramel forest, where they learned the lesson of balance and harmony. The golden trunks showed them the power of patience, and the rustling leaves reminded them that each step in life is a note in a greater melody. With the golden caramel crystals carefully placed in the wagon's velvet box, the elves knew that their path had been enriched with a new ingredient, one that would not only perfume the chocolate, but give it a voice, transforming each snack into a sweet song. And so, the enchanted wagon continued its journey, carrying them to other wonders of the land, where magic was waiting to be discovered. Chapter 17. The Biscuit Bridge. After leaving the caramel forest, the elves drove their enchanted cart along a road lit by the gentle afternoon sun. The caramel crystals in the velvet box still sparkled, and the melody of the golden leaves echoed in their souls like a soothing echo. But this time, an even more unexpected landscape opened up before them. a flowing white expanse that shone like molten silver. "Look!" shouted Rin, jumping to his feet in the cart. "A river as white as the clouds." And indeed, before them undulated the Milk River, a milky and creamy water that flowed smoothly, emitting a delicate scent of vanilla and honey. Its waves crashed against the banks with a sweet murmur, and the bubbles that rose to the surface broke with small musical pops, like a child's laughter. The elves got out of the cart to take a better look. The banks were covered with green grass, sprinkled with pink and yellow flowers, which resembled petals of icing sugar. Along the river, a few large mint leaves floated in the water, spreading freshness. "It is the river that feeds the entire land," explained the master painter, in his warm voice. "From it springs the milk used in every cake, in every chocolate and in every sweet dream." But how to get across? The elves looked on in amazement. The water seemed deep and the current too strong to swim or cross by cart. Then, in the distance, they saw an amazing construction, a huge bridge, sparkling in the sun, that arched over the water. The bridge was made entirely of golden biscuits, tied together with caramel ribbons and strengthened by a thin layer of white chocolate. It seemed so fragile that you would think it would crumble at the first breeze, and yet it had stood for centuries across the Milk River. The biscuits were square, round or heart-shaped, and each had a different design: engraved flowers, stars or spirals. Above the arch, the bridge was decorated with brown sugar crystals that sparkled in the sunlight. And when the wind passed over it, the biscuits gently hit each other, making pleasant sounds, like the sweet tinkle of glass bells. "It's like an orchestra," Mira said, delighted. "A bridge that sings." "They say that every step on this bridge is a musical note," added 𝕍𝖑𝖏. "Only those with a pure heart can cross it without the biscuits breaking." The elves looked at each other. The bridge was wonderful, but it also seemed fragile. Rin, brave as everyone knew him, took the first step. When his feet touched the biscuits, they made a cheerful sound, like tambourines. "Ha! It's like a game," he laughed. Mira immediately followed. Under her footsteps, the biscuits sang a gentle melody, like a small bell. Then the others climbed up: Dara, Sora, Nilo, Aurelia, and Tavi. Together, each step struck a different note, and the crossing of the bridge turned into a sweet symphony, accompanied by the murmur of the Milk River. "Listen," Aurelia whispered, "it's as if the bridge is singing about us. It's the song of friendship." As they moved forward, the elves discovered that not only their footsteps were making music, but also the movement of the cart. The sugar wheels, rubbing gently against the biscuits, added a gentle rhythm, like a gentle drum. Above, the wind hit the brown sugar crystals, which spread crystalline tinkles. Together, the bridge had become a living orchestra, where every element, the elves' footsteps, the cart wheels, the wind, even the river below, united in a sweet and harmonious melody. Tavi, the dreamer, spread his hands and said, "It's like we're in the middle of a concert written just for us. Every sound is an invitation to joy." But, halfway across the bridge, the elves felt the biscuits start to crackle louder, as if their weight had tested their balance. 𝕍𝖑𝖏 stopped them with a gesture. "Now comes the real test. The biscuit bridge requires not only light steps, but also pure hearts. If there is fear, distrust, or selfishness between you, the biscuits will crumble." The elves looked at each other worriedly. They had already been through a lot together, but each had their own emotions. Rin always wanted to seem the bravest. Sora sought perfection and was afraid of mistakes. But she was sensitive and sometimes lost in dreams. "We must walk together," Nilo said calmly. "The bridge is testing us as a team." So they took each other's hands and started again. And as if by magic, the biscuits under their feet lit up, and the sounds became clearer and more harmonious. The bridge answered them with encouraging melodies, a sign that they had passed the test. From the middle of the bridge, the view was amazing. The river flowed wide and calm, with silver reflections. From time to time, large milk bubbles rose to the surface and popped with a sweet sound, spreading a warm vanilla scent. "It's as if the river is laughing with us," Dora said, her eyes wide. On the surface of the water, whipped cream swans floated gracefully, leaving creamy trails behind them. The elves watched in fascination. Everything seemed like a dream from which they did not want to wake up. When they reached the other end, the bridge made a last long tinkle, like a final note. The elves went down to the shore, feeling lighter, more united and more confident. "You have learned the lesson of the bridge," said 𝕍𝖑𝖓. "You have understood that only together, united and sincere, can you overcome the trials of life. The biscuit bridge is not only a road over the water, but also a bridge over your fears." The elves smiled. They felt in their souls that this crossing had changed them. Every sound, every step had been a note in a greater melody, a melody of friendship and courage. Before it moved on, the bridge also left them a gift, a biscuit larger than the others. Detached from the arch and fell gently in front of them, tea was decorated with sugar crystals and engraved with mysterious symbols. "This is the biscuit of harmony," said 𝕍𝖑𝖓. "Tea will remind you that your music is stronger when you are united. Keep it with care." Aurelia placed it in the velvet box, along with the other gifts collected on the road: chocolate beans, caramel crystals, the perfumes of spices. The enchanted cart set off again, and the elves looked back. The bridge shone in the sunlight, and the river continued to flow quietly. The sweet tinkles still followed them, like a farewell song, until the bridge remained a golden memory on the horizon. "I feel like we're getting closer to something even bigger," 𝕮𝖃 said dreamily. "Our journey is like a musical story. And each chapter is a new song," Mira added, laughing. The cart moved away, carrying them to the next wonder of the land of the elves. And in their souls, the biscuit bridge remained not only a crossing over the Milk River, but also a lesson about unity, courage and harmony. The biscuit bridge takes the elves on a unique experience, crossing a fragile and enchanted arch, where every step is a musical note, and every sound a lesson about friendship. The Milk River, with its vanilla scent, becomes the perfect backdrop for this ordeal, and the gift they received, the Harmony Biscuit, symbolizes the power of unity. Thus, the elves continue their journey, carrying in their souls the sweet tinkles of the bridge, a melody that would guide them further towards their goal. Chapter 18. The Valley of Jelly Beans. After crossing the biscuit bridge and letting themselves be carried away by the sweet tinkles of its musical notes, the elves set off again with the enchanted cart on the road bathed in light. The Milk River was left behind, but its delicate vanilla aroma still floated in their nostrils, like a memory that would not fade. In front of them, as they climbed a small rise of land, a completely new landscape opened up, more vivid, more colorful and more playful than anything they had seen before. It seemed as if someone had sprinkled the rainbow on the ground, mixing red, green, yellow, orange, purple and blue in a wide meadow. "Look!" Mira shouted, her eyes shining. "It's like a field of precious stones, but soft and sweet." 𝕍𝖑𝖓 smiled with a light in his eyes. "You have arrived in the Valley of the Jellyfish. It is the place where colors come to life, and every step hides a surprise." The elves got out of the cart and stepped on the multicolored carpet. Under their feet, the ground was soft, elastic, as if they were walking on sweet sponges. But what fascinated them the most was the fact that the meadow was not covered with ordinary grass, but with thousands and thousands of small, translucent jellies, in the shape of flowers, stars and drops. Each jelly had a vivid color: ruby, emerald, sapphire, amber. In the sun, the meadow sparkled like a crystal sea, and the elves felt like travelers in a sweet dream. How beautiful, Dora said, bending down and touching a blue jelly. Her fingers sank slightly into it, and the jelly immediately jumped up, with a pop, cheerfully, returning to its place. Did you hear? Rin laughed. It made a pop, as if it were laughing at us. And then they discovered that each jelly, when touched or pressed, responded with a playful pop sound, like a small balloon popping, but without bursting. The elves set off further through the valley of the jelly, and the entire meadow became an orchestra of pops. With each step, with each jump or touch, the jellies made funny sounds. Some deeper, some thinner, like a concert of playful balloons. Listen, Aurelia shouted, giggling. It's like a symphony of joy. Rin began to jump from one place to another, making a series of rapid pops, like a cheerful drum. Mira followed him, but she tried to achieve a melodious rhythm, carefully pressing the colored jellies. Soon, the entire valley echoed with a unique music, created by their footsteps. 𝕍𝖑 looked at them gently. The Valley of the Jellies reminds us that simple joy, play and laughter are as important as work. Each poplar is an invitation to be children again. The elves then discovered that the jellies not only sounded, but also smelled. When they pressed a red jelly flower, the scent of ripe strawberries spread in the air. When they touched a yellow star, the aroma of sweet lemons could be felt. The blue ones spread the smell of blueberries, and the green ones, of fresh apples. It's a garden of aromas, Dora said, with delight. Every sound has a fragrance. 𝕮𝖆 the dreamer stood still for a few moments, his eyes closed, touching a few jellies with his hand. Symphony of poplars and aromas rose around him. It's like I'm dancing in a rainbow of tastes, he whispered to one point. The elves noticed something amazing. Some jellies seemed to move on their own, as if they had life. They bounced lightly, like elastic balls, and with each jump they made a cheerful poplar. They are the dancing jellies, said Master 𝕍𝖑. They live to bring joy to those who pass by. If you follow them, they will show you the way to the center of the valley. The elves set off after the jumping jellies, laughing at every jump and poplar. It was like an endless game, in which the joy never died down. To the edge of the valley, several tall and unusual poplars stood. They did not have green leaves, but translucent leaves, similar to giant jellies. When the wind blew, these leaves trembled and made a clear sound of pop, like large drops of water falling into a lake. The poplars of the cheerful valley, said 𝕍𝖑. They guard the entrance and spread their song over the entire meadow. Without them, the jellies would have no voice. The elves sat under the poplars and listened. It was a natural concert, in which the sounds of the trees mixed with the poplars of the meadow, creating such cheerful music that even their hearts seemed to jump for joy. But, as everywhere in the land of the elves, here too there was a test. At some point, the sky darkened slightly, and a shadow fell over the valley. The elves felt how the jellies stopped jumping. The poplars faded, and the colors withered, becoming paler. What is happening? Mira asked, worried. The valley feeds on the laughter and joy of those who visit it, explained 𝕍𝖑. If passers-by forget to rejoice, the jellies lose their color, and the poplars fall silent. Then the elves understood. In order to bring back the life of the valley, they had to let themselves be carried away by childhood, to laugh and play. Rin jumped first and started doing somersaults on the jelly carpet. Mira danced, inventing playful steps. Dora hummed a melody, and the jellies responded with rhythmic pops. Nilo, usually more serious, also got caught up in the game and made a funny jump, causing laughter. Soon, all seven were dancing, jumping and singing together. The valley reacted immediately. the jellies regained their bright colors. The poplars became more intense, and the air was filled with sweet perfumes. "We did it," Aurelia shouted. "We brought back the joy of the valley." As a sign of gratitude, the valley gave them a basket full of happy jellies, each with a different color and a unique poplar. 𝕍𝖑𝖈 explained to them. "These jellies are not just sweet. When someone sad tastes them, they will hear a happy poplar in their soul that will make them smile again." The elves placed the basket in the velvet box, along with the other treasures collected along the way. The enchanted cart was waiting for them at the edge. The elves climbed in, but before leaving, they looked again across the rainbow meadow. The jellies were jumping, the poplars were singing, and the colors were sparkling more vividly than ever. "This valley has taught us something precious," said 𝕮𝖆𝖈. "That joy and laughter are gifts as important as magic or work. And that a simple poplar can be more powerful than 1,000 words," added 𝕮𝖆𝖕. The sugar wheels of the cart started again, leaving behind the cheerful sounds. But the elves knew that the Valley of the Jelly Beans would always remain in their hearts, like a song of childhood and boundless happiness. Thus, the elves crossed the Valley of the Jelly Beans, the place where colors dance, perfumes sing, and every step brings a poplar of joy. Their attempt was not to forget the joy and play, and the reward was a unique gift. The merry jellies, capable of bringing a smile even in the saddest moments. The valley showed them that the journey is not only about work and discoveries, but also about keeping the childish play and the power of laughter in the soul. With this new gift, the enchanted cart moved on, towards new sweet wonders of the land of the elves. Chapter 19. The Palace as a Sweet Jewel. The enchanted carriage moved forward smoothly, and the elves, with their hearts still vibrating from the joyful song of the Valley of Jelly, looked curiously at the horizon in front of them. Beyond the soft and colorful hills, a brilliant outline began to rise, like they had never seen before. The sun's rays played on the white and transparent surfaces, spreading crystal-like reflections. "Look!" Mira shouted, her eyes wide with amazement. "It's like an ice palace. But it doesn't melt." 𝕍𝖑𝖈 tilted his head, smiling with a kind of pride. "It's not ice, but sugar marble. You have arrived at the Sweet Jewel Palace, the place where beauty and sweetness come together to create a true miracle." As they approached, the elves saw how the walls of the palace were made of translucent blocks of white sugar, cut with geometric precision. Each block sparkled in the sun like a diamond, but, looking closer, delicate filigree patterns could be discerned in it, like veins of crystal. The sugar marble was not only beautiful, but also alive. When the wind blew, the blocks vibrated slightly, making a crystalline tinkling sound, like a discreet choir of bells. "It's as if the walls breathe music," whispered 𝕮𝖆𝖕 the dreamer. "Here everything has a voice." Above the walls, the palace rose with thin towers, covered with shiny glazes. Some were dressed in raspberry pink glaze, others in pistachio green, and a few sparkled in the pearly white of vanilla. The sun made them shine like rare jewels. At the tops of the towers were delicate decorations, like crowns of transparent caramel. In the light, they seemed to be illuminated halos, as if the palace were crowned with sweet stars. "The towers seem made for the queens of fairy tales," said 𝕮𝖆𝖈, in a gentle voice. "Or for dreams that never die," added Aurelia, clasping her hands to her chest. The cart stopped in front of an immense gate, carved from translucent caramel. The doors were decorated with arabesques of white chocolate and sprinkled with small stones of colored sugar, like edible rubies and sapphires. When the elves approached, the gate opened by itself, creaking like a delicate harp. Beyond it, a sweet marble alley unfolded, leading to the inner courtyard. "Come on," 𝕍𝖑𝖈 urged them. "The palace is waiting to be discovered." Once through the gate, the elves were speechless. In front of them stretched vast, carefully tended gardens, where each flower was a dessert, each bush a fragrant cake. Marzipan tulips, with delicate petals colored in pink and white. Pomegranate jelly roses, spreading a bittersweet fragrance. Lilies of whipped cream, trembling at the slightest breeze. A mixture of scents floated in the air: vanilla, cinnamon, almonds, sweet lemons. The elves felt their breathing become easier, as if the gardens not only smelled, but also healed. In the middle of the garden rose fountains of white chocolate, from which flowed a golden liquid, scented with honey. Small birds, winged from light caramel, came to quench their thirst, and their songs sounded like a rain of bells as they advanced. The elves discovered incredible details. The balconies were decorated with spun sugar lace, as fine as silk. The pillars carried spirals of chocolate, and on each balustrade sparkled sweet stones, like amethysts and topazes. The entire palace was a living jewel, where the sweets not only adorned but also illuminated. 𝕰𝖑𝖛𝖊𝖔𝖗 told them. The sugar walls were lit up with lights from within, and the entire palace seemed like a constellation descended to earth. Here beauty is not only for the eyes, but also for the heart, said 𝕰𝖍𝖓, thoughtfully. Is as if the whole world had turned into a sweet treasure. The elves stepped inside. The first room was a vast hall, with a translucent sugar floor. As they walked, the light passed through the floor and reflected on the ceiling, creating a play of colors. The walls were decorated with stained glass windows made of candied fruit, and the sunlight passed through them, scattering colored rays on their faces. In the middle there was a long table made of polished dark chocolate, on which were placed lanterns made of burnt sugar. The elves felt like they were in a dream, walking through a hall that was both a cathedral, a dessert, and a song. But the beauty of the palace also hit a trial. When the elves stopped in the great hall, the doors suddenly closed, and the sugar walls lost their shine. The light went out, and a cold shadow fell over the room. What happened? Mira asked, anxiously. 𝕍𝖑 looked solemnly. The palace demands from each visitor not only amazement, but also purity of heart. Pure sugar recognizes the truth in souls. If there is fear, selfishness, or malice, the walls fade. The elves looked at each other. They were tired of the journey, maybe a little doubtful. But they knew that they needed to open their souls. Dara took the first step. She remembered all the moments of weakness on the journey and spoke them out loud, without fear. There were times when I wanted to give up, but I know that I must not let myself be defeated. Mira continued. Sometimes I am afraid of the unknown, but I am learning to move forward, even with fear. Rin admitted. I have laughed at others, sometimes too much. But I promise myself to bring smiles, not to hurt. One by one, each elves told their truth. The entire hall echoed with sincere voices, without a mask. And then, the sugar crystals began to shine again, brighter than before. You did it, said 𝕍𝖑 with moist eyes. The palace recognizes sincerity as the sweetest jewel. From the sweet crystal floor rose a small chest, carved from white sugar and decorated with golden glaze. Inside were 7 translucent stones, each with a different light. Red, green, blue, yellow, purple, orange, and white. These are the stones of the pure heart, said 𝕍𝖑. They do not melt, they do not break, because they are made of your truth. Wherever you carry them you will know that sincerity is the greatest power. The elves carefully placed them in the velvet box in the cart, along with the other treasures. When they left the palace as Sweet Jewel, the sun was already setting, and the fragrant gardens sparkled in the warm light of dusk. The glazed towers shone like sweet flames, and the sugar marbles gave off a soft, tinkling sound. The elves climbed back into the cart, feeling that they had gone through a test that had cleansed their souls. They left lighter, more sincere, but also stronger. Beauty without truth is just an illusion, 𝕮𝖍𝖕 said, looking back. But when beauty meets a pure heart, a miracle is born. The enchanted cart set off again, leaving behind the palace shining like a sweet jewel and the fragrant gardens that had given them the lesson of courage and sincerity. The palace as a sweet jewel is not only a place of beauty, but also a mirror of the heart. The sugar marble walls, the glazed towers and the fragrant gardens can only shine in the presence of the truth of the soul. The trial here taught the elves that sincerity is a treasure sweeter than any dessert, and the gift they received, the stones of the pure heart, will light their path further. Chapter 20. The arrival of the cart. The enchanted cart had left the fragrant gardens of the palace as a sweet jewel and was now advancing on a road that seemed woven from threads of light. From time to time, golden sparks settled on the sugar wheels of the vehicle, like little stars that immediately melted, leaving behind bright trails. The cinnamon wood vibrated with every step, and the velvet box where the treasures were kept sparkled discreetly, as if it too enjoyed the new adventure. The elves, still enveloped by the emotions of the ordeal in the palace, raised their gaze to the sky and the horizon. Two slender white figures, with huge wings, shone in the sunlight. They seemed like two comets descended to earth, and their song could be heard like a flute breeze. "Look!" Mira shouted, pointing her finger. "They're coming towards us." The two creatures landed gracefully, raising clouds of sweet dust, which spread the scent of vanilla and cinnamon. The elves watched them fascinated. The first was 𝕊𝖏, a white-winged horse, with silky hair that sparkled in silver reflections. His huge wings were adorned with mother-of-pearl feathers, and his eyes had a gentle, almost human shine. With each of his steps, the earth bloomed in small sugar stars. The second was 𝕰𝖓𝖓, a horse as black as onyx, but just as noble. His wings, pure white, created a spectacular contrast. His mane was sprinkled with gold dust, and his breath gave off a sweet warmth, like a cake just taken out of the oven. Unlike the quiet 𝕊𝖏, 𝕰𝖓𝖓 seemed full of energy and courage, his every clatter a friendly thunder. The elves knew that they were not in front of ordinary horses, but of guardians of the sky, protectors of the land of the elves. 𝕊𝖏 and 𝕰𝖓𝖓, whispered Zugga respectfully, bowing slightly. "They come to open the way for us to a royal reception." From behind the two horses, as if carried on their wings, a delicate procession appeared. Two silhouettes descended the steps of light that were woven in the air. The first was Princess 𝕍𝖆𝖈. She wore a diaphanous dress, woven from vanilla silk and embroidered with gold thread. Her long honey-colored hair was sprinkled with small sugar crystals that sparkled with every step. Her eyes, blue as the clear sky, had a gentleness that conquered anyone who looked at her. Her movements exuded elegance and grace, but also a silent strength, as if she carried the light of the entire land in her soul. Next to her was 𝕉𝖓𝖓, a robust young man with broad shoulders and firm steps. He wore a dark chocolate cloak, embroidered with golden motifs, and in his hands he held a cane carved from red caramel. He seemed like a fighter, but his gaze, of an intense green, betrayed the kindness and loyalty of a true protector. In his presence, the elves felt safe, as if nothing bad could touch them. 𝕊𝖏 and 𝕰𝖓𝖓, they sat on either side of the road, clearing the way for the princess and her protector. The elves, excited, got out of the cart and slowly approached. "Welcome to the heart of our land," said Princess 𝕍𝖆𝖈, with a voice that resembled the sound of a harp. "I have learned of your journey and the trials you have overcome. You carry not only sweet treasures in your chest, but also courage, sincerity and dreams." 𝕉𝖓𝖓, in a serious voice, completed. "The land needs elves like you. Your journey is more important than you think, for each of your steps adds strength to the heart of this place." The elves looked at each other. Mira put her hand to her chest, and 𝕉𝖆 took a step forward, excited. "We only wanted to learn how to create the best chocolate in the world," he said. "But now we feel that our path is more than that." 𝕍𝖆𝖈 smiled. And that is precisely why your journey is not just about chocolate, but about the soul. The desserts of this land are not simple sweets, they are reflections of the heart. And you have already learned the most important lessons: trust, sincerity and courage. Fino approached Dara and bowed his forehead, touching her lightly with his warm muzzle. A white light emerged from the touch that enveloped her soul, filling her with peace. Bombo approached Rin, who, with his playful nature, did not expect such a gesture. But the black horse spread its wings and looked him straight in the eyes. For the first time, Rin felt a calm strength, a kind of new courage, which was not only noisy gaiety, but also inner strength. Zuga watched the scene carefully. Fino and Bombo do not choose their friends at random. They recognize hearts that can fly. The elves understood that the bond created with the winged horses was not a passing one, but a gift meant to accompany them in their next trials. Leora invited them to a small crystal meadow, where a magical table had been prepared. The meadow sparkled in the evening light, and the air was scented with orange blossom and honey. On the table were star milk cakes, lavender-scented jellies, crunchy caramelized almond cookies, and sparkling lemon nectar drinks. "This is the table of friendship," said 𝕉𝖓𝖓. "Whoever tastes it becomes part of the covenant of the land of the elves." The elves ate, and each bite seemed not only a joy for the senses, but also a strengthening of their connection to the place. Mira felt new inspiration for her sweet creations. Nilo understood more deeply how to listen to the sound of cocoa beans, and Dara discovered a peace she had never known before. After the feast ended, Leora raised a sweet crystal goblet and solemnly said, "Elves of the sweet dream, we offer you our blessing. Your journey will be long, but wherever you go, Fino and Bombo will watch over you. Never forget, the true magic is not in the ingredients of chocolate, but in the hearts of those who create it." 𝕉𝖓𝖓 added, "When you are faced with the greatest test, remember this day. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to go on even when the heart trembles." The elves felt these words settle deep in their souls, like seeds that would bloom in due time. When evening fell, Leora and 𝕉𝖓𝖓 led them back to the enchanted cart. Fino and Bombo rose into the air again, flying above them like protectors. The cart had started off lighter, as if it had been carried not only by the sugar wheels, but also by the invisible wings of friendship. The elves, gathered inside, looked back. Princess Leora and 𝕉𝖓𝖓 had remained in the clearing, greeting them with bright smiles. The moon's rays poured over them, giving them an almost unearthly air. "I feel like I've received something more than gifts," 𝕮𝖍𝖕 said, dreamily. "I've received a promise," Dara added. "And a bigger family," Rin added, leaning back with a smile. The cart disappeared on the path of light, carrying with it not only the elves and their treasures, but also the blessing of two noble protectors and the winged horses that watched over the sky. The elves are welcomed by Princess Leora and 𝕉𝖓𝖓, two royal figures who not only offer them food and rest, but also lessons in courage and sincerity. The appearance of the winged horses Fino and Bombo symbolizes their connection with the sky and the inner strength that they must discover. Through this welcome, the elves understand that their adventure is not just a journey of chocolate, but a journey of the heart, where every encounter, every gift and every trial shapes their souls. Chapter 21. Opening the Magic Box. The palace, like a sweet jewel, vibrated with emotions on the morning when something was about to happen that, for many, seemed like just a story whispered through the valleys of the jelly and the great hall, where the sunlight played on the stained glass windows of melted sugar and reflected on the sweet marble floor. The enchanted box was placed. Right in the middle, the tea was made of cinnamon wood braided with ribbons of golden caramel, and its locks shone like jewels of honey crystal. On the lid, the master painter had carved vivid scenes, dancing elves, flowing rivers of chocolate, biscuit bridges arching over milky waters. All this work breathed a beauty that surpassed any ordinary treasure. Everyone had gathered around the box. Princess Leora, in her mother-of-pearl dress that spread the scent of almond flowers, 𝕉𝖓𝖓, her faithful friend, always with a sharp eye and a soul ready for adventure, the hardworking elves, and next to them, Fino and Bombo, the winged creatures who guarded the enchanted cart. Everyone held their breath. Master 𝕍𝖑, the venerable chocolate craftsman, raised his hand and signaled for silence. Today, he said in his gentle but serious voice, you will witness a rare miracle. The moment when our magic intertwines with dreams and gives life to creations. But be careful. This life is like a spark, short and bright, because it can only be maintained as long as the song of the heart lasts. With these words, 𝕍𝖑 took out of his pocket a tiny key, carved from a pure cocoa bean, polished until it looked like a brown pearl. The key was inserted into the lock of the box. Sweet tinkling, like a crystal bell, was heard throughout the room. Everyone felt their chests vibrate. When the lid began to slowly lift, a heady scent spread, warm chocolate, vanilla, cinnamon and a hint of fresh mint. The elves instinctively approached, their eyes wide as two sparkling pearls. From inside, playful lights, like stars descending from the night, rose towards the ceiling. They seemed like sweet fireflies carrying stories on their wings. Then, from the core of the box, the chocolate figurines sculpted by 𝕍𝖑 were visible. The 7 miniature elves, perfect down to the smallest detail. Lena, with her hair tied in 2 pigtails and her apron sprinkled with cocoa powder. Nilo, with strong arms, ready to spin the enchanted mill. Mira, full of smiles, holding a small bag of colored sugar. Sora, sober and attentive, with her eyes focused on smoothing each surface. Rin, the brave one, with his fine cloak. 𝕉𝖆, the dreamer, holding an invisible parchment of stars. And Dara, the delicate one, whose touch brought balance and perfection. When the sun's rays touched the figurines, a miracle happened. The chocolate began to tremble slightly, then sparkle, and a luminous energy emerged from the figurines. The life-sized elves staggered, as if they had woken up from a deep sleep. We are alive, Lena whispered in amazement, looking at her hands full of life. Just for a few moments, added 𝕍𝖑 with a secret smile. But these moments are the most precious gift. The hall was filled with laughter and exclamations. The elves ran around the room, touching the melted sugar curtains, smelling the marzipan flowers in crystal vases, listening to the clinking of the icing towers that responded with echoes. Mira, with her wide, curious eyes, ran towards 𝕉𝖓𝖓 and, without thinking, touched his forehead. Her fingers left a trail of colored powder, which turned into an involuntary smile on his face. What is this? He asked, laughing. Joy, she answered simply. Nilo, the strong one, approached Fino and Bombo. He stroked their wings and they trembled with delight, shaking off shiny sugar dust from their feathers. Sora, the sober one, stopped in front of the box, watching how it still sparkled. She knew that their time was limited. We must use the moments wisely, she said. Rin, with his irrepressible energy, could not help himself. Then let's live the adventure right now. He climbed one of the caramel pillars of the hall and shouted from above. Life is short, but the beauty of the moment is immortal. Everyone burst into applause and giggles. During this time, 𝕉𝖆 had remained motionless, with his eyes closed, as if he were listening to something that the others could not hear. What are you doing, 𝕉𝖆? Dara asked him gently. I listen to the song of the heart, he answered. Our key is hidden in it. And indeed, a melody began to sound. It did not come from any visible instrument, but from the air itself, from the sugar walls of the palace, from the hearts of all those present. It was a sweet and bright song, full of hope. The elves danced, and the light in their bodies became more and more intense. 𝕉𝖓𝖈, fascinated, approached Dara and whispered, "You are more than chocolate figures. You are part of this realm." Dara smiled at her gratefully. "You too, princess, are part of our dream." The minutes passed, and the spark of life slowly melted. Zugr, who was watching everything with the attention of a parent, raised his hand again. "Elves, your time is near. But know this, every moment you live leaves a mark. Nothing is lost." Then the elves gathered in a circle, joined their hands and, with a gesture, sent a wave of light to everyone around them. Tea filled the hall, penetrated the fragrant gardens, spread through the glazed towers and reached the valley of the jellyfish. The tea was as if their souls had blessed the entire land. Borzan, moved, felt a tear on his cheek. They are alive, and yet ephemeral. What greater gift could there be than this? Finally, the elves began to fade, their bodies turning back into chocolate figurines, but their smiles remained alive on their sculpted faces. The song of the heart slowly faded, like an echo in the distance. The lid of the box closed slowly, and the lock sparkled one last time. The room became silent again. Only the mixed scent of chocolate and cinnamon floated in the air. Zugr turned to everyone gathered and said, "You have seen the miracle. Life is not only breathing and time, but also emotion, joy and sharing. The elves showed us that every moment can be an eternity, if lived with the heart." 𝕉𝖓𝖈 looked at him with shining eyes and understood that this day was not just about opening a magical box, but about discovering their own inner strength. Chapter 22. At the Queen's Table. After the miracle of the magic box, the elves still felt the sparkling energy of the ephemeral life that had enveloped them for a few moments. The enchanted carriage set off again, carrying them through the fragrant gardens of the palace as sweet jewel, and then to the domain of the Sugar Queen, a legendary lady whose beauty was known throughout the land and whose meals were true feasts for the senses. Fino and Bombo flew ahead, guiding the carriage along the road covered with fine sugar powder, which sparkled in the midday light. The air was permeated with a sweet smell of caramel and candied fruit, and the sugar birds sang enchantingly, like cheerful bells. The elves watched in amazement, knowing that each step brought them closer to a completely new experience, where their magic would be tasted and admired by the Queen's most demanding courtiers. The Sugar Queen's palace towered before them. The towers were carved from golden praline, covered in shiny icing and white chocolate decorations, and the main entrance was marked by a gigantic gingerbread gate, with cinnamon ornaments and small edible stones that sparkled like rubies. The courtyard was filled with sugar flowers, and small caramel fountains through fine jets that reflected the sun. The elves could already feel the energy of the place, and shivers of anticipation ran down their spines. Princess 𝕉𝖓𝖈 and Borzan accompanied them, making them feel protected and safe. The master painter, with his solemn air, warned them, "Remember, elves, what you do here will be a testament to your grace, not just your skills. The courtiers will not only taste sweets, they will feel the magic in the souls of yours." And the great hall, decorated with spun sugar lace and melted caramel chandeliers. The Sugar Queen's courtiers waited impatiently. Each wore elegant, pastel-colored robes adorned with sweet crystal dust. The atmosphere was filled with the scents of vanilla, honey, and candied fruit, and the sound of crystal bells mingled with the whispers of curiosity of the gathering. "Do you see these elves?" 𝕉𝖓𝖈 told the courtiers. "They have been through a magical journey, and now they come to share not only their sweets, but the very magic of their hearts." The elves, excited, stepped in front of the long table, sitting down carefully. Every look, every gesture, was carefully observed by the courtiers, delighted and skeptical at the same time. Dara approached the prepared platters first, and her hands, each candy, each chocolate figurine began to shine subtly, emanating a sweet warmth that made the air vibrate slightly. The courtiers, wide-eyed with amazement, tasted the first piece. Immediately, they felt enveloped by happy memories, playing in the whipped cream meadows, laughing with friends. The sensation of freedom and pure joy was as if the taste of sweets turned into pure emotion. Rin, the brave one, arranged the liquid chocolate and jellies into playful shapes. When the courtiers tasted, they felt a surge of courage and adventure, as if they had jumped into a river of chocolate and slid on bridges of biscuits, enveloped in the magic of childhood. Mira added colored sugar and star dust over the desserts. Each crystal that dissolved on the tongue brought with it sweet dreams and inspiration, making the courtiers laugh and feel full of energy. The sister, with her finesse, smoothed each surface of the chocolate, and the courtiers felt in those gestures the order and perfection, a calm that balanced the intense emotions brought by the sweets of other elves. Nilo, with his power, carefully mixed the ingredients, shaping the cocoa hearts and the flavor powders. The courtiers tasted and, for a few moments, felt the strength and stability, the wisdom of those who know how to transform simple ingredients into pure magic. 𝕉𝖆𝖈, the dreamer, added rare spices and star dust. The courtiers closed their eyes and felt their most hidden dreams take shape, flying around them like golden fireflies. Lena, with her infectious joy, sprinkled sweet dust over everything, and the courtiers burst into laughter and giggles of delight, simply feeling that their magic was real. The courtiers were enchanted. The taste of each dessert was more than sweet. It was an emotion, an experience, a dream transposed into flavor. Some were full of, some brought joy, others brought tears of joy, and others inspired a deep peace, as if all the stress in the world had melted into a hot chocolate. The queen herself, descending the glazed marble steps, tasted a piece of chocolate molded by Dara. A gentle light bathed her face, and her eyes filled with tears of delight. "Elves," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "you do not just offer sweets. You offer a part of your soul. This is true magic." 𝕮𝖓𝖓, observing her gaze, whispered to the courtiers, "If this taste brought you a smile, know that the elves live to share more than desserts. They live to bring our hearts together." As the courtiers continued to taste, the whole transformed into a spectacle of light and color. Each gesture of the elves produced sweet sparks, which rose and merged with the rays of the sun. The colored powder flew into the air, forming sugar rainbows that danced around the tables and people. The aromas intertwined like an orchestra, and each courtier felt how the taste and perfume transported him to the land of sweet dreams. The young and old forgot about time. They played with the desserts, laughed, tasted and discovered new combinations of flavors, each taste becoming a memorable experience. The elves, even though they were ephemeral as living forms, felt their power. The magic they had created was real, palpable, and gave joy to everyone. When the feast ended, the sugar queen raised the sweet crystal goblet. "Today you learned that magic does not only lie in the perfect ingredients or in complicated recipes. It lies in your hearts, in the sincerity and joy you put into every gesture." The elves showed us that real sweets cannot just be consumed, they must be lived. Leora adds, "And every moment of magic can be shared. Every smile brought by your taste is a spark that lights up the world." 𝕮𝖓𝖓 concludes, "The courtiers tasted the elves not just for the sweets, but for their soul. This is the true mastery of creation. The elves not only created impressive desserts, but transformed each aroma and shape into a gesture of love and joy. The courtiers tasted not only chocolate and jellies, but also the energy, soul and emotion of the elves, and the effect of this experience transformed the entire whole into a place of celebration, a place where sweets become a symbol of the connection between souls. Thus, the Queen's table was not only a feast of tastes, but also a lesson in the power of giving and the beauty of ephemeral of the moment, lived with the heart. The elves, through their magic, had managed to bring pure and boundless joy to the world around them, preparing themselves for the adventures that were to come. Chapter 23. The news reaches the factory. After their magical experience at the Sugar Queen's table, the elves returned to the heart of the factory in the land of the elves, their souls still vibrating with the emotion of the moment when the courtiers had tasted their sweet magic. The enchanted carriage had brought them home, crossing the hills of whipped cream, the forests of caramel and the bridges of biscuits, each place keeping the scent of chocolate, vanilla and stardust in the air. The moment they entered the great hall of the factory, the colored lights and the jingling of the magical machines greeted them like a familiar choir. The aroma of freshly roasted grains and melted sugar made them smile. The factory was not just a place of work, but a house of creativity, a realm where dreams took shape. Just as the elves sat down at their work tables, a shining letter fell from the sky through a cloud of powder. Tea was brought by a small sugar butterfly, which floated gracefully and made a delicate tinkle with each beat of its wings. 𝕍𝖔, with a solemn movement, picked up the letter and unfolded it. On the paper was written in golden ink, "Dear elves, we have followed your adventures and creations with great delight. Soon, we will organize a festival of sweets, where your magic and taste will be admired by all the beings of the realm. It is time to start planning new recipes, adding the flavors you have discovered and experimenting with bold combinations. With love, Princess Leora and Borzen." The elves burst into a wave of excitement. The factory hall echoed with shouts of joy, laughter and impatient footsteps. Each one had begun to imagine how they would create new sweet wonders. "Festival!" shouted Rin, jumping with excitement. "We will make the most spectacular chocolate in the whole world." "And the jellies," Mira added, her eyes sparkling. "They will be more colorful and fragrant than ever." The elves sat down at their tables, each with their magical instruments. Nilo's enchanted mill, Lena's machine for roasting and cleaning grains, Sora's smoothing trays, Myra's bags of colored powders and spices. 𝕍𝖔 looked at them with pride. "Remember," he said, "it's not just about taste. Each ingredient must be added with emotion, with care and with the intention of transmitting joy." Tavi, the dreamer, began to write down ideas. Chocolate infused with stardust, candies that melt to the rhythm of music, jellies that change color depending on the mood. His ideas were fantastic, but the other elves complemented them with their own experience and magic. Dara, the master of balance, proposed a chocolate recipe that would combine the sweet taste with the subtle aroma of vanilla flowers and honey. "It must be perfect," she said. "Anyone who tastes it should feel harmony and peace." Rin, full of courage, wants to create effervescent candies that will easily jump in the mouth and bring the feeling of adventure. "Every bite should be a journey," he said, smiling. Lena, with her infectious joy, suggested glow-in-the-dark jellies, so that you can see the color of your dreams even at night. "Each jelly will have its own spark," she added. "And it will be impossible not to smile when you see it." Nilo, focused and methodical, checks the recipes and adjusts the proportions of cocoa beans and sugar. "The taste must be consistent, but retain the magic," he said. "Each bite must bring joy and strength." Mira, attentive to colors and delicate aromas, adds fruit powders and rare spices. "We will have colors that inspire courage and fragrances that bring happy memories," she said, smiling. Sister, a perfectionist, began to smooth the chocolate and shape the shapes, making sure that every detail was impeccable. "Shape and texture matter as much as taste," she said. "What you see and feel with your hand must be as magical as what you taste." The elves discovered that true magic came not only from the ingredients, but also from their collaboration. Each idea, each gesture, was completed by the other. Their combinations turned into a symphony of aromas and colors, and the factory hall seemed to breathe with them. "Looking at you," said 𝕍𝖔, magic is stronger when it is shared. There is no greater secret. Joy and creativity multiply when they are together. The courtiers in the palace, the sugar butterflies and even Fino and Bombo followed each step with interest, as if they felt the vibration of the creations. Even the magical machines seemed to dance, shaking their wheels and steaming with inviting smells as the recipes took shape. The elves tasted each creation, adjusting flavors, colors, and shapes. 𝕊𝖆 added a sprinkle of star dust to a chocolate, and 𝕰𝖑𝖛 made jellies that popped gently on the tongue. 𝕰𝖑𝖛 added fruit powder for flavor and appearance, and 𝕮𝖆 balanced the taste and texture. It has to be perfect for the festival, said Nilo. Not just sweet, but memorable. Lena made the jellies glow discreetly, and the factory's magical current amplified their brilliance, provoking exclamations of amazement from all the elves. And this atmosphere full of creativity and concentration, the elves learned from every mistake and every success. Each recipe became not just a dessert, but a story about friendship, courage, joy, and magic. After a few hours of intense work, the elves gathered around the sweet marble table, where 𝕍𝖑 helped them write the final list of recipes. Chocolate infused with stardust and rare spices, which brings courage and dreaming. Jellies that change color depending on the emotions of the one who tastes them, a true spectacle of the senses. Effervescent pralines, which easily jump in the mouth, bringing joy and adventure. Luminous candies that glow in the dark and inspire instant smiles. Balanced and harmonious desserts that bring inner peace and balance. The festival will be a celebration of your hearts, said 𝕍𝖑. Never forget, the magic is not only in the sweet ingredients, but in the way you place them and in the emotions you put into each gesture. The elves receive the news from the palace and understand that their magic does not end at the factory or at the queen's table, but must be shared during the upcoming festival. Planning new recipes becomes a collective experience, a dance of creativity, collaboration, and shared emotions. Every gesture, every drop of aroma and every color is charged with intention and emotion. The elves do not just create sweets, they transmit joy, courage, peace, and inspiration. The factory is transformed into a place of dreams, and each recipe prepared for the festival will be a small sweet miracle, carrying within it the essence of the elves' hearts. Chapter 24: New Creations and Inventions. After receiving the news of the Sweets Festival, the elf factory had transformed into a real laboratory of imagination. The cream meadows, the biscuit bridges and the cake rooms were filled with the smell of freshly roasted cocoa, melted sugar and colored powders. The magical machines hummed and emitted fragrant steam, while their wheels sparkled under the gentle sunlight. 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕮𝖆 were the most excited of all the elves. They felt that the festival was the perfect opportunity to test their imagination and create something never seen before. 𝕊𝖆 the dreamer wrote down his ideas on invisible parchments, mixing inspiration with the mastery acquired in weeks of practice. 𝕮𝖆, with her infectious joy and energy, added colors and flavors, transforming each idea into a palpable experience. 𝕊𝖆, 𝕮𝖆 said, imagine a chocolate that comes to life for a moment, like little elves dancing on your tongue. Perfect. 𝕊𝖆 replied, his eyes sparkling. We'll also add rare fruit flavors that transform into color and fragrance in your mouth. The duo's first project was dancing chocolate. They mixed rare cocoa beans with golden fruit powders, adding a dash of stardust. The melted chocolate was poured into delicate shapes: elves, stars, and butterflies. 𝕮𝖆 added colored powder that subtly shimmered, and 𝕊𝖆 used heart magic to infuse each figure with a spark of life. When the smaller elves in the factory tasted the chocolate, it vibrated slightly and danced on their tongues, provoking laughter and exclamations of amazement. The flavors changed depending on the mood of the taster, making the experience different for each taste bud. It's wonderful, Rin shouted. Every bite is a little adventure. And you can feel the joy in chocolate, Dora added, delicately touching a figure that continued to light up and move. The master painter watched with a mysterious smile. This is true magic. It's not just the taste that counts, but also the emotion you transmit. The second invention, chocolate with unusual flavors. 𝕊𝖆𝖈 didn't stop there. Inspired by the colors and flavors of the Valley of the Jelly Beans, they conceived chocolate with unusual flavors: lavender and orange, cinnamon and raspberry, vanilla and stardust. Each combination was carefully balanced, so that the flavor would surprise, but not overwhelm. We'll make every taste tell a story, 𝕈 said. The first bite brings courage, the second smiles, and the third, dreaming. 𝕊𝖆 used the invisible parchment to record the exact formulas, adjusting each ingredient until the magic and taste were perfect. The chocolate was molded into fantastic shapes: little castles, arched bridges, butterflies, and stars that seemed to float. The courtiers and smaller elves in the factory tested the creations and discovered that the flavors changed depending on the emotions of the taster. Those who were cheerful felt an explosion of citrus flavors, those who were dreamy felt notes of vanilla and lavender, and the brave discovered shades of cinnamon and intense cocoa. In addition to shapes and flavors, 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕈 played with the textures of the chocolate. Some were effervescent, which would pop gently in the mouth, others creamy and velvety, and others crunchy, with small sugar crystals that sparkled in the light. Texture is as important as flavor, said 𝕊𝖆. You have to feel the magic in every bite. Exactly, added 𝕈, laughing. Each combination must be surprising, but pleasant. Experimenting with textures helps them understand how to create desserts that are not only tasty, but also cause emotion and amazement. Each test was a small show. Elves dancing on marble tables, colored powder in the air, and shimmering melted chocolate over fantastic shapes. 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕈 were inspired by the fantastic landscapes of the land of sweet dreams. The cream meadows, the caramel forests, the milk river, the valley of jelly, and the bridge of biscuits. Each place offered ideas for flavors, colors, and shapes. Look at this caramel leaf, 𝕊𝖆 said, pointing to a golden leaf from the caramel forest. We can turn it into a salted caramel-flavored praline that melts easily in your mouth. And if we add sprinkles of fruit powder, it might be surprising. 𝕈 replied, adding colored powders over the still melted chocolate. Each experiment was a mixture of science and magic, where the ingredients were carefully chosen and arranged with precision, but each gesture carried the excitement and joy of the elves. The smaller elves in the factory were delighted to participate in the new inventions. Each snack brought laughter and exclamations. "Wow! This chocolate flies in your mouth," shouted one of them. "And these jellies change color depending on what you feel," added another. 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕈 watched in fascination as their creations came to life in the hands of others. Tea was exactly as they had imagined. The chocolate not only had taste, but also emotion, and story, and pure magic. As the day drew to a close, the elves gathered around the painter, who looked at them with pride. 𝕊𝖆, 𝕈, and all the elves, he said, you have demonstrated that true magic does not lie only in the ingredients, but in imagination, courage, and joy. Your chocolate is not only tasty, but it carries emotion and a story. Lena, Nilo, Dara, and the other elves joined in with smiles. The festival will be wonderful, because every praline, every jelly, and every shape tells a story. 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕈 looked at each other. They knew that the adventure was just beginning. The festival was just a few steps away, and they still had so many combinations of tastes, shapes, and aromas to experiment with. 𝕊𝖆 and 𝕈 managed to transform the factory into a magical laboratory, where chocolate becomes more than a dessert. It is an experience, a spectacle of shapes, aromas, and emotions. The elves discover that their work is not just about taste, but about how to translate joy, courage, and dreaming into each bite, thus preparing for the Sweets Festival, which will bring together the entire community in a celebration of magic and creativity. Chapter 25, Sweet Dream Festival. The day of the festival had arrived with a soft, golden light streaming through the large windows of the Sugar Queen's palace, reflecting off the sparkling icing, sugar crystals, and praline towers. The air was filled with the scent of vanilla, cocoa, cinnamon, and candied fruit, and the wind blew gently, carrying sparks of magical powder. All the hills, the whipped cream meadows, the biscuit bridges, and the milk river seemed to vibrate in anticipation of the great event. The land of sweet dreams shone, sweeter and more alive than ever, as if every leaf, every blade of whipped cream grass, and every drop of caramel were eagerly waiting to be a part of the celebration. The elves woke up with mixed emotions: enthusiasm, pride, and a slight fear. After weeks of work, plans, and experiments, their creations were about to be presented to the world. Their factory, with its thousands of magical machines, its enchanted mills, and its tables full of colored powders, now seemed like a sacred place of creativity. Phino and Bombo, the winged birds, gently shook their wings full of sugar dust, bringing a festive air to the main hall. "Today," said Zugger, "is the day your magic takes full shape. Remember that it is not just about the taste, but about the emotion you transmit. Every praline, jelly, and chocolate will be a story." Around the palace, courtiers and visitors were beginning to gather. The whipped cream meadows were arranged like an infinite carpet, with vanilla bees buzzing over the flowers and small sprinkles of colored powders. The biscuit bridges and the milk river had been decorated with chains of melted caramel, and in the Valley of the Jelly every poplar and bush was covered with small shiny jelly globes. The elves divided the tasks. Lena and Rin checked the light and colors, Mira and Tavi adjusted the final flavors and shapes, Nilo and Sora took care of the texture and smoothness of the chocolate, and Dara made sure that everything was balanced and harmonious. Phino and Bombo were responsible for the flight of sparks magical, which decorated each table with a subtle and captivating glow. The master painter supervised everything with experienced eyes, making small adjustments and giving advice. "Remember, Lena, the sparkles must be playful, not dazzling. Mira, the aroma must be surprising, but not overwhelming. Everything must be pure harmony." When the courtyard and the palace hall filled with visitors, the elves gathered around the main table. The Sugar Queen, Princess Leora, and Borzan were present in front, waiting with excitement to see the elves' creations. "Dear friends," said the Queen, "today we will celebrate not only taste, but also the magic of the heart and the joy shared." The elves worked with passion and love to transform simple ingredients into sweet stories. Each visitor received a special platter prepared by the elves: dancing praline, effervescent chocolate, jellies that changed color depending on the mood, luminous candies, and flavored desserts with stardust and rare fruits. The first sample was the dancing chocolate, created by Tavi and Mira. At the first bite, the visitors felt how the figurines came to life for a few moments, dancing and shining. The aromas changed subtly. Whoever felt joy felt notes of citrus and vanilla, whoever felt courage felt cinnamon and intense cocoa. Laughter and exclamations of amazement filled the courtyard and the palace hall. The colorful jellies caused instant smiles. Upon contact with the tongue, they changed their hue depending on the emotions of the one who tasted them. The smaller elves from the factory ran among the visitors, showing how a jelly can be transformed into a rainbow, and the adults were fascinated by this playful magic. The effervescent chocolate and delicate pralines, masterfully created by Nilo, Sora, and Dara, brought balance and harmony. Each taste was a complete experience, combining texture, aroma, and color. Each bite was like a little story that brought joy and inspiration. The courtiers and visitors from other lands were amazed. The delight was visible in their eyes, and their smiles were contagious. Children ran between the tables, trying each sweet, and adults closed their eyes, feeling how the taste and magic created deep memories and emotions. "It's more than delicious," whispered Princess Leora. "It's as if each chocolate and jelly bears the soul of the creators." 𝕮𝖓𝖓𝖉, smiling, added, "The elves managed to transform sweets into pure emotion. It's a festival of the heart, not just of taste." The elves, tired but happy, walked among the visitors, adjusting the last details, adding sparkles of stardust, correcting small imperfections and sharing explanations about the magic of each creation. Each gesture was full of joy and pride. Their work had been recognized and appreciated. "Look at how the chocolate dances," Rin shouted, pointing to a group of fascinated children. "And this aroma makes me dream of the caramel forest," Lena added, laughing. Fino and Bombo flew among the visitors, spreading sugar dust and adding an extra touch of magic to each tasting. The sun began to descend towards the horizon. The palace and the courtyard seemed to shine brighter than at the beginning of the day. The sweet aromas remained in the air, and the visitors left the place with smiles and unforgettable memories. The elves gathered around the painter again, tired but happy. "You succeeded," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "You created not just sweets, but emotion, joy, and pure magic. Your land shines sweeter than ever because of your hearts." Lena, Mira, Tavi, Nilo, Dara, Sora, and Rin looked at each other and smiled. They knew that their work had been rewarded, that their magic had been shared, and that the land of sweet dreams remains a place of stories, more alive and sweeter than ever. The Sweet Dreams Festival is more than a festival of taste. It is a celebration of creativity, imagination, collaboration, and shared joy. Each sweet, each flavor, and each shape reflects the magic of the elves' hearts, transforming the entire land into a shining place, full of life and magic. The land of sweet dreams, with the festival, becomes a symbol of the power of dreams, imagination, and the joy of creating for others. The elves understand that true magic does not lie not just in ingredients or shapes, but in the emotions and intentions with which you create, and their sweets are not just snacks, but true stories lived and shared with all those who taste them. Thus, the elves' adventure ends successfully, but their magic and inspiration will remain alive in the land of sweet dreams forever. Epilogue. After the grand celebration of Sweet Dream, the land of the elves seemed more alive and brighter than ever. The fields of whipped cream sparkled in the sunlight, and the rivers of milk and chocolate overflowed with a joyful tinkle, as if the whole world was celebrating the magic created by the elves. The caramel leaves rustled in the breeze, and the vanilla bees flew leisurely among the flowers, collecting sweet powders that charged the air with the aroma of joy. Every corner of the forest, every biscuit bridge and every jelly hill kept the memory of the festival, reflecting the harmony and creativity that enveloped the entire land. The chocolate factory, the heart of this magical universe, also shone brighter than ever. The sugar bricks and chocolate glaze seemed to radiate satisfaction and pride, and the magical machines hummed softly, resting after months of work. The smoothing trays, the enchanted mills, and the mixers full of magic sparks kept the echo of the laughter and rustle of the elves. Like a melody of memory and the large halls, the aroma of chocolate and sugar mixed with the perfume of dreams, transforming the factory into a sanctuary of imagination and endless creativity. The elves, now more united and wiser than before, looked proudly at their creations. Each praline, chocolate, or jelly carried the imprint of their hearts, courage, joy, curiosity, and passion. They knew that their work was not just about sweets, but about bringing joy and magic to those around them. Each smile of those who tasted their creations was a reward more precious than any ingredient or sweet gold. The sun slowly descended towards the horizon, illuminating the factory's glazed towers and biscuit bridges. The elves gathered together. 𝕍𝖑, with a gentle smile, told them, "This is the real magic, not the cocoa beans, nor the sugar or the colored powders, but your hearts full of joy and friendship. This land will always shine as long as you keep the magic of creation and dreams alive." Thus, the land of the elves and the chocolate factory remain a place of wonders, where sweetness is more than a taste. It is emotion, story and dream, ready to inspire generations of elves and visitors, every day, forever.